This is a multi-part HOA story with updates. I also have more stories on my podcast, link in the description. This one's called HOA Tried to Tow My Legally Permitted Vehicle Twice in One Day, posted by Desert Nurse 760. I paid cash for a 2-bedroom condo in April. The condo came with 2 parking permits, one red and one green. The updated rules that were sent to me after closing states that an owner gets 2 parking permits, one for covered parking and one for uncovered parking. However, the rules do not state which permit is for which parking. Walking around the neighborhood revealed that both green and red permits under covered parking, as well as about half of the vehicles showing no permit at all. 1 week ago, I received a notice on my windshield that my car would be towed for not showing the proper permit, even though the permit was clearly visible in the corner of the passenger side windshield. Yeah, in fact, the notice was placed under the passenger wiper blade directly above the permit. I called the management company and I informed them of their mistake, along with a picture of the permit in the corner of the windshield. I thought that this would solve the problem, and I was wrong. I am a nurse and I work the night shift. At about 1300 hours, my wife came in screaming that one of her cars was being towed. I immediately got up, I got dressed, and I went outside to find an employee of the management company directing a tow truck to tow my car. She said that it was being towed because it had the wrong color permit. I immediately pulled up the R&Rs on my phone and I asked her to show me where the color codes were explained. She couldn't do that because that explanation doesn't exist in the rules. But she refused to stop the towing company, so I had no choice but to call the police. Upon arrival, I explained to the officers what was happening, and then I showed them the R&Rs on my phone and both of my cars with the proper permits. They told the management employee and the tow company that they had no reason to tow my car. The rep hemmed and hawed that I was parked wrong even if the rules didn't state so. The cop ordered that tow company to release my car. Problem solved, right? Yeah, wrong. I go back to bed and I just fall asleep when my wife comes in screaming that they're towing the car again. I go back outside and the same cop is there from earlier. This time, the president of the management company, which is the one who oversees the HOA board meetings, he's there too, along with the same tow truck driver and employee from before. This time, my car is already up on the flatbed. The manager told police that I still had the wrong permit to use covered parking, even though it was the right one according to this unwritten rule that I'd learned of earlier in the day. The cop asked the manager if she had inspected the permit before calling for the car to be towed, and she admitted, well, that she hadn't, and she was just going off of what the employee had told her from earlier. The cop asked her to verify that the permit was the right color to be under covered parking, and she hesitatingly admitted that it was. The cop was visibly perturbed and again ordered the tow truck to release my vehicle. He then gave a stern talking to the manager about making false claims and not verifying for herself what her employee told her. The cop gave me a case number and said that both reports would be available in 24 hours. I plan to use those reports to bring this to the attention of the HOA board, as I know for certain that the manager will try to sweep this under the rug or will refuse to even acknowledge this incident. What should my next step be? First update. I was finally able to get to the police station for the 2 police reports from that day. Report number 1 at 14:02. Management believes he does not have proper parking permit, but per RP he does. Civil issue between the RP, reporting person, and the management and HOA board over parking. The property has parking guidelines which are unclear of what vehicle could park where. The reporting person has been having issues with one specific board member who states that he harasses him. The reporting person was advised that he could obtain a civil harassment order, and reporting person's vehicle was not towed. Report number 2 at 1800 says, the subject has credentials to park where he was told not to park. HOA did not verify before calling tow. They have been counseled. Truck had proper parking pass, and the HOA manager did not verify before calling a tow. They have been told they must verify prior to calling a tow, or else they could face civil issues. I think this pretty much shows how wrong the HOA management was. I am talking to an attorney about my best legal options. I will update here as things move forward. An edit. I received word from the HOA management company that I would not be allowed to attend the online meeting tomorrow because it is only for the listed owner, who happens to be my wife. And I have a full, legal, valid, and notarized power of attorney that gives me exclusive rights to discuss the property with the HOA board and HOA management. I shot back a nasty email telling the management company to go back to law school. There was an attempt to bar me from the meeting 2 days before it was scheduled. For reasons that I won't go into now, the condo is held in a trust with my son as a beneficiary, which means, from a legal standpoint, he is the holder of the deed. The HOA management company tried to argue that only deed-holding owners can participate in violation hearings. This, despite me having a fully encompassing power of attorney for my son that explicitly gives me the power to manage all real estate holdings. In the end, my son sent an email to the HOA management designating me as his representative in the matter, and they were forced to accept it. However, the meeting was postponed until August 3rd. OP then says I was banned from r/HOA for my previous post. Apparently, they don't take too kindly to people exposing the HOA's screw-ups. From the first viewing to the close of escrow, I have always been the POC. The POA specific to this property has been on file with A, the escrow company, and B, the BIA, the condo is leased on Indian land, and C, my financial institution, and also D, the HOA management company, which is the one causing these problems, and E, the home insurance company. The HOA management company did not even know any of my son's contact info prior to the 24th, as they have never had any reason to interact with him due to the POA. This was a ploy to prevent me from representing myself at the hearing, but it backfired on them. The next update says, if you've been following this saga, you'd know that the HOA had originally scheduled my parking violation hearing for Monday, July 28th, and then they moved it to Tuesday, August 3rd, which is tomorrow. I just received an email stating that they have again rescheduled it for August 17th. I am fairly certain that they did this to conform to California's open meetings law that states that HOAs must announce all meetings ahead of time to all HOA members. They failed to do that for the first 2 scheduled meetings, and apparently someone got wise to their screw-up. I'll keep you posted on the 17th. Today I received a letter from the HOA management that I have violated CC&R and R&R regulations by posting my open letter to HOA members on the HOA bulletin board that's located at the front of the complex next to the mailboxes. I had posted the letter that I had sent to the HOA board regarding the intentional harassment by the board regarding my properly permitted vehicle being intentionally towed on July 7th. I went through both the R&Rs and the CC&Rs and could find no mention of HOA members posting on the HOA bulletin board being illegal. Interestingly, the letter states my violation as posting letter illegally on HOA info boards. I'm no lawyer, but illegally generally means that there is some state or local law prohibiting an act. HOA rules aren't local, state, or federal law, so I don't know why they're using the term illegally. Yeah, no worries, I just laughed it off. My wife and I have decided to go ahead with filing suit against the HOA. We have retained an experienced law firm that only represents homeowners in HOA disputes, and I'll update you as things move forward. It's been a long 2 days. First off, while this parking drama has been unfolding, there is a second issue that I have been dealing with. That is an HOA board member ambushing and harassing me in the parking lot when I leave for work at night. This has happened twice in the 5 months that we have lived here. This is the board member who has placed security cameras at various places around the building, including one that he had pointed at the pool area, apparently recording people at the pool, including children. As a result, I had determined that my best course of action, after filing a complaint with the HOA board twice, which was ignored both times, was to request a restraining order against this individual. A temporary restraining order was denied by the court, and a hearing was scheduled for today, August 18th, to consider the regular restraining order. I arrived at court only to be told that the hearing was rescheduled for September 1st. Important to note is that I received no notice of the date change as is required by law. Upon arriving back home, I was greeted by an email from a high-priced HOA law firm out of Los Angeles. The letter basically states that they are representing the board member and that my RO request has no merit because he was acting within his duties as an HOA board member. What the letter failed to mention was that the first instance of harassment took place before he was seated on the board. The letter goes on about frivolous lawsuits, having to pay the board members' legal fees, blah blah blah. It's a bullcrap letter designed to scare me off of pursuing the RO. One thing of note in the letter is its attempt to conflate my RO request with my continuous parking violations. This board member is the same one who has 2 parking passes that allow him to park both of his cars under the carport. Us regular peons, we only get 1. At the hearing, I logged on through Zoom to find only the HOA management representative with her camera on. The other 4 board members, including the one I have the RO restraining order pending against, were all blacked out. The HOA rep insisted that it was I that requested the meeting and therefore there would be no questions. I would state my case and the board would decide in executive session what my fate would be. I argued that it wasn't me who requested the meeting, it was the board that sent the violation notice to me. Anyway, I made my case the best that I could by pointing out that no new owners were told what the permit was for what parking. I then pointed out that a letter was sent in February with the details of the parking permits, but that I never received that letter when I closed escrow in April. And that letter explicitly states that the permits are non-transferable and registered to the individual units and owners. So the board member with 2 red permits is in violation of the HOA R&Rs. My pleas fell on deaf ears. So now I wait to hear my fate. My wife, who has been supportive, has had enough. She's ready to sell and get the heck out of this nightmare. She went so far as to arrange our realtor to meet with us this Saturday. The good news is that prices have increased roughly 15 to 20% in just 5 months, so if we sell, we will just break even considering our closing cost. Something that I have not mentioned up to now is my ongoing attempt at engaging as many other homeowners as I can in the workings of the HOA and the management company. To that end, I set up a Zoom call and I spread the word. The call was this afternoon and 15 homeowners logged on. All of them related stories from heck concerning the management company and its principal agent who is the de facto head of the HOA, and all agreed that the management company needs to be replaced. One of the homeowners is an active member of the HOA board but is resigning next week. He indicated that 2 other board members are either resigning or moving, so there will be 3 empty seats on the board. Of the 15 on the call, 3 agreed to be nominated to fill those empty slots. It's a start towards cleaning up the HOA board and replacing the management company with a competent one. Lots of you have messaged me asking for an update. Since my last post, the number of disgruntled homeowners who are unhappy with the HOA board and the management company has grown to 46 out of 120 units, a fairly sizable chunk. We have been having weekly Zoom meetings to strategize our responses to the monthly HOA meeting, which happened on 9/22. We had sent a letter to the board prior to the meeting indicating that we had 3 homeowners who were willing to be appointed to the board for the remainder of the term, which expires in February. As I posted earlier, there are 2 board vacancies and another board member, which is the one who has been harassing me, is in escrow and should be closing this week. Our grievances were simple. We are unanimous that the management company should not be in control of the HOA board. The board should control the management company. Many owners expressed dissatisfaction with the parking rules and the fact that the HOA never clearly defined them. Virtually all of us expressed the opinion that the management company should be terminated for a whole host of reasons. At the start of the meeting, the management, which is, really just one person, muted everyone and refused to let anyone talk until after the board appointed 2 of their own people to the vacancies. No discussion was allowed. No questions to the new board members were allowed. Our candidates were not even considered, and the entire board refused to be on camera. Further, the manager would not allow any questions. We could only make statements that were less than 3 minutes long. In her opening, she mentioned a $7,000 legal bill that she stated that the board had incurred defending a board member from an angry homeowner. And yeah, that would be me. She then opened the floor, but would only unmute one person at a time. Person after person expressed their displeasure that 2 new board members were appointed without any discussion or input from the homeowners. Many asked why the board member who was in escrow did not resign from the board and allow at least one of our candidates to be appointed. Again, neither the board nor the management answered any questions. Yeah, there was talk about a recall, which most of my coalition supported. One member, who is not part of our group, asked about that $7,000 legal expense, but the board, again, refused to answer. When it became my turn, I explained the best that I could in 3 minutes why the HOA paid an attorney 7 Gs and how I had been continually harassed by the board and the management. The next few speakers demanded that the HOA and management immediately cease payment to the attorney and asked why the members were not informed of the board's decision to hire one. Out of nearly 50 speakers, only one owner expressed approval of the board and the management company. After the meeting, I received a message for a 65-year-old female owner who forwarded me the harassment that she had endured by the same board member that has been harassing me. I was astounded by how similar our stories were. Her niece had been living with her and found this pervert filming her from his kitchen window, which overlooks the pool area. Same thing happened to my wife, which, along with the other harassment, was why I filed the restraining order. However, in hindsight, I made a very bad decision. When I discovered that his condo was in escrow, I withdrew the restraining order, thinking that he would soon be gone. After discovering this, I immediately sent the board a letter asking why someone who has a documented history of harassment was allowed to be appointed to the board in the first place. I received no answer. My group will meet on Zoom on Sunday to discuss what our next moves should be, and I welcome your input. It's been about a month since I last posted, so here's a quick update. After the previous HOA meeting on 9/22, every homeowner received a letter stating that the board was levying a one-time $185 assessment fee to cover legal fees of $10,000 incurred by the board to defend the, now no longer, board member from my restraining order lawsuit and to cover the recall election that was called for, but then rescinded by my group. It was pointed out by one of us, who happens to be a lawyer, that every HOA board member must be covered under a director's and officer's liability insurance policy. The question was asked why the board did not file a claim on this policy before levying the assessment fee, and why we were being charged for an election recall that never happened. To date, the board has not responded to either question. On the legal front, I attended court on 9/1 to formally withdraw my restraining order complaint on the board member who had been harassing me. I did it because the MLS listed his condo as in escrow, and I figured I wouldn't need a restraining order if he was moving out. The attorney hired by the HOA was there, and the judge asked him if he agreed with the dismissal. He answered that he did. Case closed, or so I thought. A week later, I get a certified letter that they are suing me for attorney fees and costs. At the time, the bill was just under $10,000. The letter claimed that because I withdrew my complaint, the board member was the prevailing party and was entitled to recover attorney fees, and listed a number of court cases in his defense. A quick Google search revealed that all of those cases involved contract law, not civil restraining order cases. So I typed up my response and then I filed it with the court. The hearing to determine if I owed them $10,000 was on October 21st. It took the judge less than 3 minutes to tear their argument to shreds and dismiss their case. Ergo, I'm not paying a dime to the board member or the HOA who hired the attorney. Keep in mind that this board member had resigned on 9/24 when his condo sold, and the HOA attorney was still being paid to defend him. He didn't even come to court as he has moved out of the state completely. On 10/27, there was another monthly HOA meeting. Again, the board allowed no Q&A, just 3 minutes per person. About 30 owners showed up. The day before, the HOA sent out a blast email to owners telling them that the legal fees had increased to $12,000 because of a resident who continues to cause trouble with the board, and that the $185 assessment was to cover that, while they acknowledged that the recall effort was off the table. During my 3 minutes, I explained in bullet points the lawsuit and that the HOA's case against me to collect attorney fees was denied and dismissed by the court. Others asked why the homeowners had to foot the bill for a civil issue not involving the HOA. Again, the board refused to answer any questions and told everyone that they could email their questions to the board. What a frickin' cop-out! I mean, I understand that there has been considerable pressure mounting on the HOA to explain why the D&O insurance wasn't utilized to pay the legal fees. I surmise that the board knows that any investigation into the history of the offending board member would reveal that he had been accused of harassing other owners numerous times before he was seated on the board, and that would preclude him from being covered by the insurance policy. This is an evolving part of the story. On the parking issue, I discovered that the woman who signed the authorization to tow my wife's car is not an HOA employee or a board member, nor is she employed by the management company. As far as we can tell, she is simply a friend of the manager. California law requires that the person authorizing a tow do so in an official capacity as a manager, board member, or employee of the HOA. Bringing this to the attention of the HOA and the management company has got me nothing but silence. I am considering pursuing this in small claims court, as there is another owner whose car was towed that day who was also never provided with the parking rules when they purchased their condo. They are definitely suing the HOA in small claims to recoup the towing fees of nearly $400. That's it in a nutshell, nothing earth-shattering. I was relieved that the judge found in my favor in the lawsuit, and I know that a number of owners are demanding answers from the HOA board. My group is setting our sights on the HOA board election coming up in February. There is nothing the board can do to stop that from happening. Update in the comments. Commenter says, sounds illegal to me to have an HOA foot the bill regarding a civil matter. That guy should have to pay his own legal fees, but I'm not a lawyer. Plus, why is the HOA lawyer still representing him after he sold his unit and isn't on the board anymore? Seriously, that's messed up. OP replies, those are the exact questions that are being asked of the board. They remain silent to all inquiries. Another commenter asked, I want to know who actually hired the lawyer and who is going to end up with the bill when these schmucks get booted off the board and the new board tells the lawyer to pound sand. And OP answers, according to the first letter I received from the attorney, the HOA through the management company hired him. However, nothing in the last 3 months' budget indicates that he has been paid, which is strange. This is a high-dollar LA legal firm. I know for a fact that they don't work on contingency. So somebody paid them, we just don't know who or how it was done. This is truly a mountain out of a molehill situation. I mean, a parking situation goes bad. The HOA tries to take advantage of OP, and they just say, oh, we're going to nail him for this. We're going to make money. We're going to do the things we want to do that are awful. They expect him to just take it lying down like, oh, okay, well, I got towed. Sorry, guys, it won't happen again. But no, the HOA messed with the wrong guy here. He fights back. That's right, he even meets resistance. His wife's ready to move, but he stands his grounds and said, no, we can take these guys on. He pushes harder, ends up lawyering up. They take this to court because he knows it's not just the parking, the HOA sketchiness and the awful things they do. It's the literal harassment from the board member. He knows deep down that this crap can't fly, and he says, hey, I'm not going to take this parking junk. I'm going to push harder. This jerk has to go, restraining order and all. Unfortunately, he lifted that restraining order. Well, after he lawyers up, he ends up winning over the judge. 3 minutes flat, just completely took him out. All those times he was in those Zoom meetings, took those 3 minutes and just delivered the pain just right through in those bullet points. And at the end of this all, after he comes out the victor, he finds even more sketchy HOA dealings underneath it all. Who's paying for this guy? Why is it not marked as such? Where's this money coming from? Insane story, OP, and I hope that everything gets better for you in the end. What do you think? HOA tried to punish us, told us to stop them if we can. Malicious compliance costs them 16% of the annual HOA income, and the cameras are still installed today. Posted by First Contribution 236. Get ready. This happened several years ago and is a multi-year long story. I'll keep it as succinct as possible. We installed cameras in front of our home that were looking at our vehicles. Part of the camera angles did overlook parts of 2 neighbors' properties, one backyard and one side yard. The cameras were battery operated and had a function where you could gray out areas that you didn't want to film. When motion occurred in the grayed out areas, the cameras would not be activated to film. The neighbors' entire properties and several bushels on our property were grayed out. We did this when installing them. One of the neighbors was a friend and had no issues with this whatsoever. We showed her the camera angle and she said that she didn't care whether or not we grayed out that area, but we still left it grayed out over battery life concerns. The other neighbor's name was Karen. Not really, but we all know why I chose that name. Karen was on the HOA board, and as you can imagine, we didn't get along with Karen or the HOA board. We told Karen about the camera and showed her the grayed out areas at the same time that we told our friendly neighbor about it. It was simply an FYI conversation. We're not on friendly terms, by the way. Not an asking permission conversation. She told us to take the cameras down immediately, or we would regret it. About a week after we hung the camera up, we got a notice from our HOA that we were violating the bylaws. The bylaw in question? A nuisance to your neighbors bylaw. There wasn't a specific bylaw preventing placement of cameras, so this is all they could find to try to punish us. We responded with a letter detailing how we were not violating any bylaws or laws in general and asked them to cease and desist. We all know how these stories go, though. They did not cease and they did not desist. Their first response? The HOA has the right to enforce these bylaws. Try to stop us if you think you can. These types of responses were, unfortunately, quite common from this board. We entered this battle with one goal in mind: to cost them as much money and time as possible. The HOA hired a lawyer specifically to fight us. To my knowledge, this has not happened to any other residents. In the following 4 months, we ended up costing the HOA over $4,000 in lawyers' fees fighting this battle. For reference, the entire HOA income was around $25,000 per year. When it came time for our official HOA hearing over the matter, we had successfully postponed it, thanks to an attorney friend, 3 separate times. There were over 100 back and forth emails with the HOA attorney and ourselves. Each one of those emails was a 15-minute expense for the HOA, and I was happy to follow up a follow-up question with another follow-up question if it meant that the HOA attorney was going to keep billing them. Did I say follow-up enough times? We didn't actually want to take this battle to court, so we ended up removing the cameras the day of the hearing to prevent being fined, even if the fine wouldn't hold up in court. The HOA decided in the hearing that we were guilty, surprise, surprise, of violating the bylaw. They couldn't fine us, as the bylaws don't allow a fine until after a hearing has been held, and the cameras were already removed. In the end, the punishment was a sternly written piece of paper on the attorney's letterhead delivered via certified mail that stated we were not allowed to place a camera on our home that had the potential to invade a neighbor's privacy. Keep in mind, the letter specifically stated that the camera could not be placed on our home. We left the cameras off of the home for about 4 months, until the annual HOA meeting. You should have seen the look on the HOA board's faces when I asked them to explain the $4,000 line item for attorney's fees that simply stated title searches, attorney fees. The board actually tried to hide the fact that they spent $4,000 trying to fight us over a couple of cameras by putting the fees in as title searches. Needless to say, that meeting did not go well for them. About half of them lost their positions on the board. The other half, including Karen, unfortunately, remained on the board. About a week after the annual meeting, we installed new cameras, facing the same direction as the prior cameras, only this time we installed a post in the ground and mounted the cameras to that post. The admonishment we received after the hearing specifically stated that we were not allowed to install cameras on our home and said nothing about putting them on a post. They did send a letter to try to tell us to remove the cameras, but a sternly worded response indicating that we were prepared to fight them actually worked this time around. I guess they didn't want to spend another $4,000 fighting us. We didn't receive any follow-up responses, and the cameras on the post are still installed to this day, over 2 years and running strong. If this ain't an example of HOA power and corrupt abuse, I don't know what is, but it's so beautiful because OP knew the rules, and so do I, as I like to say, and then just took them for what they're worth, following up the follow-up, running them $4,000 of their $25,000 income. That's 16% on bullcrap alone, and then to put them on the post and not the house, that's so genius malicious compliance, taking down the HOA and half the board, making them all resign. Unfortunately, Karen didn't go with them, but one day I bet she will probably. OP, way to go, and let me know what you think in the comments. This is a story about an entitled Karen causing drama in retail, of course, about shoes that she has to be right on. This is "The Customer Is Not Always Right Though" by Spirited Bee 6840. This is a pretty long story about my first job in retail. I have a lot of horror stories from that job, but this is one that sticks with me even 4 to 5 years later. A few years ago, after I had just started college, I got my first job working in the shoe department of a sporting goods store. My job was simple: assist customers with finding the shoes we want, keep the aisles neat and organized, and then occasionally order shoes for customers if they didn't have them in stock. One day, my department had a call from a customer asking if we had a shoe in stock. I checked, told them that we did, and then they asked if I could put the shoe on hold for them. Once again, I did, and then I kept it in the back until they arrived. When they did arrive, they told me the name and I went to retrieve the shoe for them. When they got the shoe, they claimed it was the wrong shoe. I was confused at first because I thought I'd gotten the one that they'd wanted, but decided that I may have made a mistake. Not making a big deal about it, I apologized and I asked for the product name again to search our inventory, only to realize I had gotten the same shoe I just handed to them. Now, I was really confused. The shoe they were asking for was the shoe that I just gave them, but they said it was wrong. So I decided to take them to the aisle that the shoe came from to see if they would like to look at the selection. The shoe that they had asked for, which was still the shoe I had given them, was actually on display. They saw the name to confirm it themselves, but still insisted it was wrong. Come to find out, the reason they said it was wrong is cause, supposedly, the shoe underwent some kind of design change, and now instead of being a pure black shoe, it was a black shoe with a small white line going around the bottom of the shoe. It was the same exact shoe, but they were confused because apparently this line was not there the last time they bought it. They explained that they were buying it for their son who worked on an oil rig and needed this type of work shoe for the job because they knew it was the one that he liked, but they were confused because of the new design of the shoe. They were an elderly couple, so I assumed they just thought it was a different shoe, and knowing their son liked it, they were concerned with getting him a different pair that he might not like as much. I reassured them it was the same shoe, despite its change in appearance, and I am sure their son would still be happy with it, to which they continued to argue it wasn't right. It now felt like I was trying to convince them that one small design change wouldn't change the way that the shoe worked. When that still didn't get through to them, I tried offering a different pair, to which they insisted they needed this shoe, but without the white line. At this point, I'm getting frustrated because it has been 30 minutes since I started trying to help these idiots. Eventually, my manager walked by and asked what was going on. After the customers explained the situation, she joined to try and help me. Eventually, she managed to convince them that it was the same shoe. I was a little annoyed that it took her 5 minutes to do something that I've been trying to do for the last 30 minutes, but I was happy that this exchange was finally over. Or so I thought. After convincing them, they decided they wanted me to order the shoes for them rather than just buy the pair that I'd already given them. Our store had a system that allowed you to order a pair of shoes online and have them sent directly to your house. So I started going through the process of ordering the shoes for them. If any of you have ever purchased something online before, which I assume is most of you, it was the same process. The system requires information like your home address, your email address, your zip code, phone number, and so on. I should mention, by the way, they had mentioned having ordered a pair of shoes from us before, and I'd been working here roughly around 2 years by this point, so I knew how our ordering system worked, and I know the way that we do it had never changed. So I started asking for their information. First of all, they claimed they don't have an email address. This was back in 2019, so it was incredibly baffling to me that anyone in the modern era didn't have an email address. But that's not where the frustration continued. As I had asked for each bit of information, they had to question me on why they needed it. Then, at one point, the old lady, who had been doing most of the talking during this whole exchange, interrupts me to claim that she never had to give us this information before and didn't understand why I needed it. I then explained to her that this is the way we've always ordered shoes for our customers, and if she'd ordered with us before, like she said, then she definitely has had to give this information. She starts to rant about it and claims, and I quote, "I may be on crazy pills, but I know I've never had to do this before." After letting her finish her rant, I explain, a bit short of patience this time, that this is just how the process works, and if she wants these shoes, she's gonna have to cooperate with me. Eventually, I get her information, order the shoes, and they leave. This entire exchange lasted a total of 45 minutes, which is 40 minutes longer than it needed to be. By the time they left, my manager saw how frustrated I was and told me I could go sit in the break room to calm down for a minute, which I gladly did. Customer service employees do not get paid enough to deal with the people like that day after day. We are human, not machines. You cannot talk to us like we're your computers. Half the time, we don't know what's going on either, and most of us don't even care. Which is why anyone who tells me that the customer is always right, I laugh in their face and tell them to go screw themselves. I'll tell you what, as Crystal Web 13 says here, the customer is always right in matters of taste. That means that if they like the red shoe and it sucks, you give them the red shoe and not the better blue one. If they want their steak well done with the rough texture of leather slathered in ketchup, then that's what you... Actually, you don't ever do that. You never grill that for someone. Medium or below, right? You do what they want to do with taste. They're not always correct in factual circumstances such as this, and if people understood this and customers did too, the world would be a better place. Right, OP? I think so. Let me know what you think as well. Neighbor won't stop banging on my walls every morning, posted by my Big Apple Pie. I've lived in my apartment complex for 4 years now and am no amateur when it comes to noisy neighbors. We've had several neighbors just come and go all around us, and they've all brought their own noises to contend with. My husband and I have no kids, just 2 cats, so we consider ourselves pretty quiet. Through all the noises made by the neighbors, including vacuuming every night at midnight, we have never complained. Not once. We just consider it to be par for the course when it comes to apartment living. However, about 3 months ago, one of my neighbors has taken to banging on the walls from the hours of 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. I can't pinpoint who it is because I'm surrounded on all sides, but I've deduced it's either my neighbor to the right, above me, or to the right and above. For a while, I genuinely thought I was being haunted because there was never any talking or movement, just insane banging. It's also sporadic, so when I try to pull an all-nighter to hear it while awake, it, of course, doesn't happen. This morning, though, whoever is banging finally shouted, "Wake the heck up!" to accompany their lovely symphony. So I now know for sure it's a human. I'm assuming someone is making noise that I can't hear, hence the banging and screaming, and I'm confident it's not us, especially since this all started. I make sure that every possible thing is unplugged before bed. but I feel like I'm losing my mind. It's difficult for me to fall asleep, so when I get woken up like that, I can't go back to sleep. The banging always makes me wake up in a panic, ready to fight. So calming down takes a while, and then by the time I'm calm again, I can't sleep. I just don't know what to do. I would tell the office, but I have no idea who it is. I'm tempted to leave notes for all the neighbors near me, but I'm very non-confrontational, so the thought of them catching me is nauseating. That is my rant. I'm just so over this particular noise. I'm losing so much sleep and my mental health is hanging by a thread. Maybe I'll just start banging back for once. Oh, that is a rough situation. I mean, ideally you would talk to the office and explain to them, hey, I think it's this, that, or them that is doing this noise after the hours they shouldn't be, and hopefully, ideally, the office would be the one to take care of that and get into that situation. Of course, we know that that's not always the way it works, and I wish you had more info on this OP. You could take it to yourself in your own ways, but like you said, you don't like confrontation. It's a tough call, and I hope it works out for you in the end. This is going to be a nasty HOA Karen story. If you're in your car, I hope you're buckled up. It's called Entitled Neighbor Complains About Our Noise, Ends Up Losing $8,000, posted by Brightglaive. Sometime around 2002, my wife and I moved into an 1,100 square foot condominium with 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. We were very fortunate to get this condominium as a second owner, and we paid only $114,000, which was $6,000 more than the original price. Our condo was on the 3rd floor, and all of the rooms were carpeted throughout the condo, with only one small 4x4 square of linoleum inside the front door to the outside breezeway. This will become important later, and yes, even the bathrooms, kitchen, and the dining room were carpeted. The front door opened to a large open space with vaulted ceilings, with the great room to the left and the dining room and kitchen to the right. The kitchen area was separated from the great room with a wall that had a cutout over the kitchen sink, and we had a long hallway directly going out of the great room to all of the bedrooms and straight in front of the front door. We got to know some of the neighbors and got along well with most of them. The neighbors directly below us were a young couple that were attending university, and they were nice and cordial with us. Shortly after they graduated, they rented out their condo to her brother and his college friends. The brother was a decent guy, and we mostly had no problems, except for one of his birthdays, where their music and boisterous conversations and happy birthdays and so on kept us up until 4:30 a.m. in the morning. My wife and I returned the favor by blasting our music the very next morning at 8 a.m. But we talked a couple weeks later and all had a laugh about it, and we never had any real problems after that. Between 2004 and 2006, we changed all the flooring in the kitchen and the dining room to ceramic tile, including the area in front of the front door, to avoid having to pay for carpet cleaning in the dining or kitchen area due to spills or our young daughter throwing food on the floor from her high chair. In 2007, our cordial neighbors sold their condo to an older newlywed couple, and they were like late 20s to early 30s. Now, if anyone has lived in between a 1st and 3rd floor condo or apartment, you will know that it is the worst place to be if you expect silence. With kids or music, you'll always have some noise that filters through the floor or the ceiling. I don't know what they were thinking or expecting when they moved in there. I was blissfully unaware that the condo had been sold, until one day, about a month later, I brought home a powered subwoofer and hooked it up to my home theater sound system. This was around 6 p.m. in the evening. I promptly put on an action flick with some big explosions and sat down to enjoy the new and improved immersive sound. After a little bit of gunfire and 2 explosions, I hear the doorbell, ding dong. I get up and immediately hear ding dong again. I walk the 5 feet to my front door and open it to see my entitled neighbor, I'll call her Karen, standing on my doorstep. I say, "Hi, can I help you?" Very agitated Karen says, "My husband and I are trying to enjoy a quiet and peaceful dinner. Can you please turn down whatever show you are watching? We can hear everything that's going on." "Oh, sure, I'm sorry about that." She turned around and walked away. I closed the door, turned the subwoofer down a ways and the main volume down a bit, and thought nothing of it. Shortly after the next round of gunfire and explosions, I hear the ding dong and then some rapid fire knocking at my door. I pause my movie and then I open the door to see Karen again. Hi, what can I do for you? We still can hear everything from your show. You need to turn it down now. At this point, I was a little fed up with her crap and decided to call her on it. Okay, so you say that you can hear everything. Can you please give me some of the last dialogue that you heard? I don't know. I just know that you were watching X show. By the way, she was totally wrong. No, actually, I'm watching Y movie, and here are the last 3 lines of dialogue, and I give her those lines. It seems you can't hear my movie as well as you're claiming. Karen, with blazing eyes and red in the face. I don't care. It's too loud. You need to turn it down. Actually, noise ordinance says I don't have to turn it down until 10 p.m. Karen, getting huffy, replies, fine, I guess my husband and I will have to go out to eat to get some peace and quiet. Me in my most cheerful voice and waving, hey, have a good night. I then turned my subwoofer up a little and the main volume back up to its previous level, and then I enjoyed the rest of my movie. The neighbors did end up going out that night for dinner or whatever. At our next HOA meeting, Karen stands up and complains long and loud about the noise, how she can hear kids jumping on the carpeted floor, we had a 4-year-old, and crying, we had a new baby, and hear us walking up and down our hallway, and hear our music and movies and TV shows, and how the Hispanic neighbors on the first floor play their music on Saturday morning so loud that they can't sleep in, and they argue so loud that they can hear every word and blah blah blah, ad nauseum. This went on for 6 months. Every time she complained, the HOA told her, well, if it's between the hours of 8 a.m. and 10 p.m., we can do nothing. If it's after 10 p.m. and before 8 a.m., you can call the police. And then the HOA would send out a letter by U.S. mail asking everyone to be cognizant of their neighbors and laying out the local city noise ordinance. I finally stopped attending the HOA meetings after month 3 of the same bullcrap. She never failed to visit at least once or twice in the week after these notices, and twice she taped them to my door. I also learned during this time that they were members of our church and had actually been assigned to visit us each month, and they never did. Cue the pro revenge. Around the 6 to 7 month mark of her constant complaints and harassment, and even a couple of visits from some very apologetic police officers after 11 p.m. at night, which they said they could hear nothing outside of my condo door, we decided to upgrade our flooring. We knew this would inflame our entitled neighbor, but we didn't care as we were tired of the constant stream of complaints from them. We chose to extend the entry tile all the way from the front door down the long hallway to the master bedroom door, and we wanted to tile the bathrooms as well. We also went with a light coffee-colored bamboo hardwood in our great room. So, demolition first. We tore out the carpet and the tack strips and pried the base molding trim off of the walls. As I'm removing the last of the nails from the walls and the subfloor about noon on a Saturday, wouldn't you know it, bang, bang, bang from the front door. Yes, I say. Karen says, can you keep it down? I'm trying to have a pampered chef party. Yeah, sure. I promptly finished pulling or driving in nails and then proceeded to bang my hammer all over the subflooring like I was driving loads of new nails for the next hour, and made sure to turn on my stereo to the local hard rock station and turn it up for the next 4 hours. FYI, the first floor neighbors were already blaring some great mariachi music. They did this every Saturday and Sunday as they cleaned their condo from top to bottom. We then rented a hardwood floor nailer that, in addition to the compressor noise and to loudly driving a nail into the flooring and the subfloor, also had to be struck with a large dead blow hammer. Bang, bang, bang. It took us 2 to 3 days to install the coffee-colored bamboo hardwood flooring in the great room, and we were sure that it was driving Karen absolutely batty. We ended up installing an awesome tile inlay down the hall, had tile running from the front door to the master bedroom, along the great room side of the divider wall, tile in the dining room, kitchen, and both bathrooms. We got the base molding on, more like nail gun and compressor fun, and caulked. The new floors looked amazing, and the bonus was, every time a hard shoe, like my daughter's favorite Sunday shoes she wore everywhere, every day, or high heel, my wife chose to learn how to do everything in 4 to 6 inch stilettos during this time, struck the floor, it was like the impact echoed through our perfect floors. All this was due to a neighbor complaining. It was also in preparation to sell our condo as we'd grown out of it by this time. We sold it within 1 month of listing at $160,000. During closing, the real estate agent for the new owners told us that the floors absolutely sold this place. We also sold at the very top of the real estate boom, right before the real estate market crashed. We later learned from some of our neighbors that within 9 months of us selling our condo, the second floor entitled neighbors moved out and they sold their condo for $30,000 less than we had, and they took about an $8,000 loss and sent a letter of complaint to the HOA stating that their condo was unlivable because of the noise from our incredible floors. Oh my goodness, this is nuclear. Like, they cost them $8,000 of a loss selling real estate. And the funny thing is, this Karen who thought that she could just rule with the HOA behind her back would just go to OP and say, yeah, screw you, you're making too much noise. The HOA stood by OP in an amazing turn of events. We never see this, do we, ever on this channel or in life? And then she just loses. There's no other way to say it, but she just lost. Now, I do want to say that I hope OP was actually respectful with the subwoofer. Those things can get loud, but you know what? When Karen got set off, OP said, forget this, I'm done. We are increasing our property value, getting this nice flooring in, and then we're moving out of here saying, see you later, Karen. Have a good day. Well, Karens will never have good days. It's true, they can't, especially HOA Karens. Let me know what you think as well. You know it's going to be good when it is some HOA revenge posted by HOA1 Throwaway. Since I've seen a few posts lately about out-of-control HOAs, I figured I'd add my 2 cents to the fray. My family and I used to live in a fairly upper-middle-class neighborhood that had an HOA. The HOA seemed pretty mellow and dedicated to their original purpose and intent, which was maintaining property values. As these things usually happen, a few new people got voted in, and things started getting a bit more OCD and militant. Here are a few examples. We had to throw away our basketball hoop because the backboard was opaque and the new requirement was glass backboards only. We got a ticket because my dad forgot that Monday was Memorial Day and he put the trash out. Of course, trash collection had been pushed back to Tuesday, so we got a fine for having the trash can out overnight. We went on vacation for a week and the grass got a bit longer than usual, but nothing unreasonable. Got threatening letters and a fine. We weren't allowed to have cars parked on the street for any reason. And my biggest pet peeve was that anyone under 18 had to be accompanied to the pool by their parent. My 17-year-old self wasn't too fond of having to get my mom to come bake in the sun anytime I wanted to go for a swim, nor was she. I was on a Navy JROTC field trip to a naval base that I will leave unnamed for anonymity reasons, and I stumbled upon what I still regard to be one of my greatest ideas. I was in the Navy Exchange, basically Walmart for Navy personnel, looking at some of their surplus stuff when I came across an ejection seat dye marker. These are those very powerful dye markers that are attached to ejection seats so that in the event of a water landing after ejection, the pilot can be found easily, floating in the middle of a huge patch of green dyed water. So I bought it for $8, which is a bargain at any price, and then I took it home. One night, after the HOA instituted an unenforceable 10 p.m. curfew for adolescents under 18, I took a little stroll over to the pool and tossed that bad Larry on in. Much to my delight and nervous horror, it worked exactly as designed. The whole pool was a neon green in a matter of a minute or two. Of course, I got the heck out of Dodge. The next day, as I drove past on my way home from school, I noticed that the pool was empty, but it still looked very, very green. In the ensuing weeks, I came to find out that the pool had to be drained, 660,000 gallons of water and a professional power washing company had to be brought in to clean the pool basin concrete, which had absorbed the dye. And then the pool had to be refilled and retreated with all of the relevant chemicals. All told, I think it cost around $10,000 to the HOA. 2 years later, the HOA president was busted by the IRS and arrested for embezzling $70,000 worth of HOA funds. He went to the big house for a couple of years. And before anyone tears into me for wasting water, this was in the South, not California. We have more water than we want down here. Oh my goodness, I mean, this starts innocent, right? You owe a little prank, $8 worth of a prank that ends up ruining the pool, costing the HOA 10 grand, and then the president gets embezzling $70,000, busted for that, and goes to jail? I mean, this just escalated quickly, as Ron Burgundy would say. All over some stupid rules, like a glass backboard, really? Come on, I'm not surprised though, because this is HOA and Karens that we're dealing with. Let me know what you think. Great job, OP. My neighbor's dumb son gets angry at me for calling the HOA to come to get his dog's mountain of crap that he let pile up in the common area. Wow, posted by Rhombus Butt. I need to vent because this is so ridiculously dumb. My neighbor is a senior lady who is nice, but her son is a bum that just smokes skunk all day in a canopy tent touching my house, doesn't have a job, and is just unpleasant all around. I constantly hear them smoking and drinking often since they moved in, and I hear loud arguments about him being a bum. So yesterday, I was walking and I cut through the wooded common area in front of their house, not their front yard. It was filled with mountains of crap. Old crap that had mold, crap that had turned white, new crap, dark crap, all types of crap. It was so much that I couldn't give a proper footing because every step there was dung. I had to walk around to get to my own house. So I called the HOA to let them know that my neighbors must let their dog just crap in the common area because they never walk it. They said they could not cite them because I have no proof, but they will go clean it. I said fine as long as it's gone. This dumb butt also comes to my door to tell me that they came to clean up the dung that he was going to clean up, and he stopped them. He said that they were writing him up. I said I called for them to clean it, and they told me specifically there would be no citation. I called to confirm, and they said that he was lying and they weren't writing him up and they were just picking it up for free, and he stopped them for no reason. So I go back there to call him on his junk, and then he starts screaming and cussing, saying that he leaves it there so no kids will walk there, and he was going to do it today. Not even have the decency to lie. His genius plan was to leave disgusting old crap everywhere so kids couldn't walk home through the common area. He is outside so much to watch kids come home from school and complain about it. He then goes off the handle to yell at me because everyone is complaining about them and not just me. I, again, told him that they were just here to clean the mountain of poop that you purposely left for free. He then said that he could have complained about the groundhogs under my deck, and I said, wait, nobody stopped you. Also, I called the HOA about that problem, and they told me to trap them myself, which I did, and they benefited from it because it was coming through their side of the fence. So, he stopped them from cleaning up mountains of crap that is still there and wasn't going to get a citation. Never walking back there again and getting a big no trespasser sign facing their parking space. What a dummy. I texted his mother saying, sorry for overstepping for wanting to clean the mountains of huge dung at no cost to you, but she never responded. Great parenting. An update. She finally texted back this morning. She says that I should have called her before the HOA cleaned that poop area and that there is actually no crap, but her son does let the dog poop all over their yard and he doesn't always get to it. I told her again that it was deep in the tree areas nowhere near her house. And she states that she has to see it herself because her son told her that I said it was the front lawn. Even if I did and I didn't, Why do you think it's acceptable to leave piles of old dung in your front yard? I am not responding back now, and they are on my crap list. Also, she brought up how I put a cage on her yard to trap groundhogs and didn't tell her. I told her son, and he allowed it, and it was to trap them, and they were coming from her lawn. I put a cage there for 5 days, and I'm the devil now? I told her that I let her put lights on my property so she can see her sidewalk from behind the fence on my house, and allowed her to put her trash in front of my house because the garbage men always ignore her house. Frickin' unbelievable. A final update. Thank you for all your support and advice. I've decided that if she wants to handle her yard, and she said that I need to mind my own business on my yard, then that's fair. I have told her to remove her lighting from my fence, to stop placing garbage in front of my house for garbage day, and if her son trespasses again, I'm calling the cops and citing the HOA for each unauthorized visit. Also, I told her to only contact me through the HOA, and I blocked her. Snoowarts4839 says, I would complain now every day that the crap he laid claim to is still there. And OP says, honestly, I had to talk to 3 crisis hotline workers and my BFF to calm down, cause it's the dumbest thing to be screamed at. Old moldy dog crap that was being cleaned up that you stopped? He even told the HOA that it's his crap, and now they can cite him if they didn't clean it. Dummy. Crapstomp says, I know it was probably horrible to have to deal with him screaming at you, but now the cat is out of the bag and he will probably treat you badly no matter what. So I would definitely keep calling. This is so screwed up what he's doing. He stopped it from being clean and it's still there. I would be fuming. He's going to be a giant jerk no matter what now, so might as well at least get this fixed and hopefully he leaves. I'm so sorry you're going through this, but you shouldn't have to. And OP says, I never went out of my way to talk to him. I only talked to him like 3 times, and they were letting him know where the pool is, his floodlight being on all night so he could smoke his skunk 24/7, and letting him know that I'll be trapping groundhogs, and if I could put a cage on their side for the week. I am definitely never going to open the door for him or be civil again, because he is one of those men who have nothing but audacity left. I will call and complain, because this is disgusting and it will attract rats and mice. Thank you for your sympathy, because this really has made me heated. I know he is probably over it because all he does is drink and smoke. Now, OK Presentation 5329, hilarious comment says, tell him if he doesn't clean it, the HOA will, or you'll put it in a bag for him and leave it on his front porch. This bag may have holes everywhere after it's dropped, so their porch gets covered in crap. This commenter says, turn off those lights and then quietly put some of the dog poop out there while she'll step in it in the dark. That reminds me of people lighting bags on fire and putting it in front of people's doors full of junk, you know. He actually admitted it to it being his? That is the worst thing you could do, man, even though, we already all know this. I mean, this is something where you would have to say the HOA would need to do more. Actually talk to the people and be like, hey, we've got this complaint going on. What's going on? Can you give me a backstory? Can you give me more details? Why are they saying this? They will clean it up and then just let it be. This is a public health and safety matter. It's pretty crappy, pun intended, that the HOA is doing this. And you know what? I think that more should be done to put the hammer down, drop it as I say, to take care of this situation. What do you think? Let me know, and way to go OP. Original poster. Karen, the building manager, probably regrets her wording. Posted by quite the opposite _yes. I live in a housing cooperative. I have no idea if there is something equivalent in other countries, but I live in Norway. It's essentially where you own your own apartment, but the cooperative owns the buildings and the land. If you're going to make changes to the building, you'll have to apply for a permit. Otherwise, it's generally do as you please, as long as you don't bother your neighbors. Anyways, I put up a small greenhouse on my private patio, as many others had done, but not this exact type. This was an aluminum construction, not a frame with a loose plastic cover kind. The building manager, who is best described as a triple Karen, threw a fit. She actually watched me spend 3 days assembling the greenhouse, and then the next day she called me and threw a fit. Not because I put up a greenhouse, but because I had used screws to fasten it to the patio for stability. Apparently, I was not allowed to use screws on the floorboards, as this was considered changes to the building in her mind. And I had destroyed the floorboards. Never mind the whole patio was built with, wait for it, screws through the floorboards. Screws in the wall were okay, she told me in response to me asking about why she'd put up shelves on her patio herself, but not the floorboards. Apparently, the difference was monumental, and everyone should just know this intuitively. Nowhere, literally nowhere, does it say fastening things to the floorboards or putting screws in the floorboards is not allowed. Not in my house rules, not in my contract, or in the National Housing Cooperative's law. But she was furious that I had done this. I took a deep breath. Oh, and as I am quite creative, I immediately thought of a workaround. I'll just put it on wheels then. I made a big number of saying that fastening was essential because otherwise the greenhouse would not be stable enough to withstand wind. She said that she understood this, but I had now ruined the co-op's property, and this was a really serious matter. She told me to send an application for a permit to see if she could find a way to get approval from the board. But she could not guarantee I could keep it, she said, with the fakest of sympathies. So I sent the application with photos saying what I had done, and that I didn't think I had to apply to do it, as I never considered putting in a prefabricated greenhouse would be seen as changes to the building. My application was rejected, as I had anticipated. But she worded the rejection exactly as I had hoped she would. I was not allowed to put in a fastened greenhouse, and she probably thought she'd been clever when she included that I was not allowed to put the greenhouse on my front lawn either. I had worked the "it needs to be fastened to the stable" angle hard because I hoped that she, as the Karen she is, would fall for that reverse psychology. So I proceeded to put the greenhouse on wheels. I made a frame from 2x4s and I put 8 small furniture wheels under the frame. I then lifted and screwed the greenhouse onto the frame. I put some boards on the sides just above the ground to stop the draft. Boom, mobile greenhouse. I can slide it all over the patio. I put some hooks in the walls and then I used transport straps to secure the whole thing to the wall for stability. The walls were okay to put screws in, remember? So, in effect, my greenhouse is now in the exact same location, 4 inches taller, and with ugly blue ribbons tying it to the wall. And the patio now has 22 open screw holes, ready to be filled with rainwater in the fall. But, oh well, as she's repeatedly told me, it's not my patio. Then I sent an orientation email to the building manager with photos and videos of the sliding greenhouse with the rest of the board members on copy, where I explained in detail what I had done and how every step was in compliance with the rejection email that I'd received, which I of course included. I said that the greenhouse was now to be considered a piece of mobile patio furniture, just like my sofa and my chairs were, and that I now considered this subject to be a closed matter. I've not heard a single word from any of them. It's been over a week. I think I got her. I can't imagine she'll find a loophole that lets her legally dictate what patio furniture is allowed and not allowed in the co-op, since the patios are stated to be for every apartment owner's private usage. So when Christmas comes, I'm planning to decorate the greenhouse with lights, make it pretty, because every time Karen steps out of her front door, she has to face my patio where she is looking straight at my greenhouse. The least I can do is make it pretty for her, right? More info and updates. I'm a 39-year-old female, and I've lived here 10 years without a single complaint. Karen is the new building manager, and being the Karen that she is, which means highly narcissistic female, she's using my greenhouse as a way to establish her newfound authority. To make an example, I didn't get her permission, so the greenhouse has got to go. It's not about the holes, it was just the only argument that she could use to get me to take it down, especially since I'd argued hard that it needed to be fastened for stability. And I'm going to take care of the holes. I'll either fix the holes or change the few damaged floorboards, and I told her this on the phone. The damage is no big deal either way. The greenhouse is my therapy. I suffer from PTSD, so keeping my therapy is kind of a big deal to me. I'm not trying to get sympathy, just saying why I decided to fight her on this. And the update. I don't know if Karen learned about her Reddit infamy and felt stupid, but today I got a new email from her. She's now letting me keep the greenhouse because it's now a mobile unit. No mention of the holes in the floor, but she was careful to remind me that any loose object that damages the co-op's property, if the wind gets a hold of it, is my financial responsibility. Well, I'm really not too worried about that. The straps are designed to hold 1.4 tons each, and I've got 3 of them. Plus, there's this amazing little thing called insurance. Now that I've got it in writing that my greenhouse is approved by the board, I'm pretty sure that I'm covered on the off chance that the 6-ounce plastic windows manage to break free from the frames and straps and wreak havoc on the neighborhood. I love how this goes because not only does OP have to deal with this Karen saying you can't do this way, she is able to figure out a way around it completely and make it even better and more painful on the Karen that still sticks to the rules. A beautiful malicious compliance here, and not to mention we find the update that Karen's trying to use her to elevate her own position, only to come back later with an email saying, okay fine, I lose, you win, but you have to go by this little rule that doesn't matter anyway because of insurance and the way that it is put together. This is a great job. Way to go, OP, and let me know what you think. Fraudulent HOA extortion, posted by Tam Lee. I posted on here a while back with perhaps one of the craziest HOA stories around. I'm dealing with a fraudulent HOA at work in my neighborhood. This group calls itself a neighborhood fund, but when the neighborhood was subdivided, there was no HOA covenant added to deeds, thus no mandatory HOA. It was started by a resident as a temporary 3-year fix to the right-of-way road and has never ended, expanding to all kinds of neighborhood concerns. Cutting down trees, no lanterns, too many cars, dealing with renters, and as a gossip email chain, nicknaming different properties with petty put-downs and a lot of other petty garbage. The leaders of this group outnumber the members by far. There have been about 7 different leaders. They hold the reserve funds and do a collection which goes directly into the leaders' private bank accounts, where they mix their personal money with the alleged communal funds. There are no elections, no articles of declaration, no financial disclosures. They use different email exchanges for people that they like and those that they don't to demand money, so it's never clear who is paying and who is not. We have seen communal funds being used to repair homes and driveways of the leaders of this fund. My family has refused to participate since 2012 due to what we believe is a misuse of funds. In 2016, I sent a certified cease and desist letter to the leader of this group, stating that the money demands needed to end. We began to be relentlessly harassed, where this leader started following us around the neighborhood when we were walking and honking her horn. We later learned that this fund and group actually is tied to the local town government in the small remote town where I live. The founder is the zoning board president and just keeps getting reappointed to that position for the last 15 years. 6 of its other leaders are all town planning and zoning officials. We have witnessed all kinds of kickbacks, with most recently 5 of this fund's leaders and members and their relatives being named to new created positions on the town board within the past 2 years. They have used their private email exchange to engage with their select members and non-board residents on local laws under current review, where the public is limited to 1 public session and so on. They have failed to recuse on issues brought by members of their HOA to the Zoning and Planning Board repeatedly. They get all special perks in government, such as private use of the community center when the public must pay a use fee, and help with grants and grant funding for their private employment. It's a mess. Last year, in June 2022, I had the newest leader of this group, a recently retired state official with a regional title, come to our private property and refuse to leave, delivering on us a personalized money demand. He was confrontational and argumentative when I told him to leave. He had previously trespassed twice on our property, caught on camera, and he knew he was not welcome on our property. I called the police, but the local police, or state police, in this remote region are also corrupt. They sent the relative of one of the leaders of this group, who happens to be a state trooper and also had lived in the neighborhood for a year, leaving 2 months prior to this incident, to take the complaint and to dispose of it. Flash forward to this May 2023, and this same individual/leader who demanded money brought a hired bulldozer and began digging up our driveway entrance and smashing our front fence so that the fence dislodged and we have a large hole in the slope of our driveway, which makes the car bounce and scrape. They have done this several times in the past as well. I videoed the whole event. I also have what I believe is a video of a white Escalade undercover police car passing by during the damage and before I called the police. The police refused to take action when we called to report the incident, and the supervisor told us that they were just pushing dirt around and they were just making a 3-point turn. He said this before they had even located the responsible party. They didn't even send a trooper to look at the damage. They didn't investigate, even though this was at the very least a hit and run. They have not given me the license or insurance of the tractor. In fact, the police officer assigned to the case told us that he couldn't find the people responsible, even though I told him it was the leader of the HOA. And he told me instead that he contacted a town government official and was evasive when we asked why. Since the property destruction, I have submitted a complaint to Internal Affairs alleging attempted extortion and detailing this unlawful slush fund being kept by town government officials. I am not sure Internal Affairs will do anything at all, and I may have to take this elsewhere. Sure, I can sue and may, but unfortunately, I have talked to 2 other families being similarly harassed by these town officials, and I learned that the county court is also corrupted. This is a very remote mountain region, and so things are quite corrupt and backwards around here. Legal fees to fight an HOA can be very high and prohibitive, especially if the fight is already an uphill battle. Not only do we have to fight this fraudulent HOA, but the corrupt town government and the corrupt police. I believe I have enough evidence, video, written records, and photos that they are attempting to extort us and that the way they are raising money is fraudulent, since it is all undeclared. In my state, New York, mandatory and voluntary HOAs must file taxes and register as a nonprofit court where they then fall under review of the Attorney General. However, the Attorney General does not take up a case where the state is a party. They won't go against state interests, such as state police. I'm posting this if anyone has any advice or specific knowledge about extortion, fraudulent money raising, police corruption, and so on. Updates in the comments section. Ben Skywalker 70 asked OP, take everything, keep copies, to the state DA. Once you have refusal in writing, go fed. And OP replies, interesting, I didn't consider the state DA. Right now, it's supposedly being reviewed by the county DA, but my feeling is this person will not do anything. Next commenter asked, what are the odds that they're related to these same buttholes you've been dealing with all along? And they really meant the estate attorney general. And OP replies, yeah, probably. I'm not from the US. I was meaning going above the DA that is potentially corrupt. I think I may have misspoke, probably meant the state attorney general, going above your local DA. Another commenter says, bet they're not paying taxes, and OP replies, they're 100% not, but not sure the IRS would do anything. OP gives another update and says, I placed FOIA request. I know there was no body cam kept for the investigation part of my report, and I also have 30 videos of multiple police vehicles coming and going from my private road in relation to this fund, meeting with the fund's leaders. Unfortunately, where I am, there are no local police, just state police, as it is very remote. Sadly, the superintendent was just fired for corruption like a year ago by the governor. I thought Internal Affairs will probably do nothing. It just seemed like my hands were a bit tied since state police are governed by the superintendent. Not sure if Internal Affairs might be better for state police? I do think they will likely retaliate. I mean, I'm probably not as afraid as I should be. I have 10 cameras on my property. Luckily, it is a part-time place, so I'm only there a few months of the year. I have a pit bull and a German shepherd. I actually really wish I understood a little more about keeping funds and laws around that. Like, is it illegal to commingle funds, or is it just considered not good or unethical? I don't know the laws regarding raising funds either. Like, is it legal to go to someone's door soliciting for an HOA type entity? I know in my state, HOAs need to incorporate and file taxes, but this group keeps trying to claim that they are informal. I don't think this argument helps them at all, but I wish I had more financial knowledge because I think I would strengthen my case. I mean, in my case, the person definitely knew he was not allowed on my property demanding money and refused to leave. But I don't really know the laws on this more generally. I know like solicitors have to get permits in my town, and I've spoken to some lawyers and, to be honest, not all of them know the financial specifics either. It seems to fall outside of some of the standard specialties. Oh my goodness, OP, all I could say is like this is not something that a lot of people are experts in, me included, that's for sure, but I wish that you could go out to someone above them all, like you're saying to do, and reporting this fraud. Like there has to be someone above everyone else in your local area. Although it's corrupt and it's bad, you can't go to them because they'll just brush it under the rug. If you can go more powerful, that is where your victory may lie. No guarantees because this is a horrible situation. I hope that and wish you could move away. Like you said, you're only there a few months of the year anyway. I know moving away doesn't feel like a win because they're continuing on, but sometimes you can just get yourself out of that situation. The best way to be out of a situation is to not even be there in the first place. OP, I hope everything gets better, and let me know in the comments what you think. Entitled mom thinks adults only doesn't apply to her kid at a resort pool, gets removed by staff, posted by Grimace for Eyes. My husband and I are currently vacationing at a 5-star hotel. There are 2 separate pools, one for kids and families, and then the Serenity and Quiet one for adults, where 21 and older is enforced. Both pools are very clearly marked as such by large signs placed around the perimeters of each. We've been here for a few days, and it has been literal paradise. We have not run into many families and kids, and those that we did see were exceptionally well behaved and attended to by their parents. Until today. We went to the adult pool and got set up on the 2 chairs. The pool was in front of us and the hot tub was behind us. It was a tad chilly, so we ventured over to the hot tub where we saw a kid, about 7, playing with a crap ton of Star Wars toys on the steps. Call me a Karen, I don't care, but this set me off. We came to this resort specifically because of the 2 very separate pools with enforced rules. I want to relax. I don't feel like hearing screaming kids on vacation. So I went over to the attendant stand and I asked if the hot tub was for families, and if so, was there an adults only hot tub that we might be directed to? I knew the answer, I just didn't want to come across as too aggressive. I was told that the hot tub was, indeed, for adults only. So I proceeded to tell both pool attendants that there was a child in the hot tub and I didn't know if his parent was nearby. You guys, both pool attendants were basically like, heck no, and walked very fast over to the hot tub and told a woman who was apparently the mother, an entitled mother or Karen, of the child that it was adults only and they had to leave. The kid was told to get out. Crying and screaming ensued, and he and the mom then just sat on the chairs. But wait, there's more. After about 5 to 10 minutes, they were still sitting on the chairs in the adult area, and again, the attendant came over and informed them that the area was adults only, and they're not even allowed to sit there, even if they're not actively using the hot tub. Karen was ticked, angrily packed up their stuff, and both were ushered out of the adults area. I suspect they were there because the kids' pool area was super busy and Karen didn't want to deal with the other kids and or couldn't score a chair. We tipped the attendants generously on our way out and are already planning our next vacation here. I wish more businesses would realize that not everyone wants to commingle with families and kids. Now the best part is that this particular hotel has kids programming all day, a kids club, and the kids family and pool is actually much bigger and nicer than the adults pool. It also has kids' water attractions like the ones you would see at a splash pad, a huge bucket that spills water, water guns, fountains, and bubblers, and so on. Why would you not be there? Oh, I know, because the mother is an entitled, selfish butt who didn't care about her kids' enjoyment or that of the adults around her. And it happened again today. We were at the adult pool again this morning, and a mother pushing a stroller with another kid in tow tried to sneak in the side entrance of the adult pool area. Not so fast. The same attendant from above stopped them and escorted them out so fast their heads must have been spinning. The kids' pool is absolute madness right now, with it being Mother's Day and there aren't many chairs left, so I'm guessing she thought the rules don't apply to her. This amazing attendant will be getting another generous tip today. An update to address a few common questions and comments. The resort was the Ritz-Carlton in Key Biscayne, Florida. Highly recommended. We will definitely be returning. Now what if the child is neurodivergent or has sensory issues? I honestly don't care. If the kid's overstimulated, he can be taken back to the hotel room for some quiet time, or literally anywhere else on the resort that's open and available to him. I also have sensory issues due to cancer treatment, and I'm not about to sit there and deal with someone else's poor planning. Not my problem while I'm on vacation, especially while there are multiple outlets and accommodations for children and literally only one for adults. And to the great comments, thank you to the parents who have offered their support and words of encouragement. The world needs more of you. I mean, the rules are the rules. If it says adults only, that means 21 and older. They don't have kids over there for a reason. And I say this as a dad. If the rules say no, then you have to go by no. All of the guests are agreeing to this when they get here, and unfortunately, this Karen did not. Way to go, OP, on reporting them, and let me know what you would do as well. Stop complaining about your neighbors. Okay, sure. Posted by the Angry Arcanist with updates. Now, that story is very recent, and the told you so effect is never as sweet as this was. I've moved in an apartment with a roommate last summer. When we first came in, the biggest part of the sale was the fact that the apartment was freshly renovated and soundproof. Now, this one is important, and you'll see why. So when we got in, my roommate immediately fell in love with it, and I was too. When we moved in, we were very careful not to bother anyone, as we wanted to quickly have a good relationship with our neighbors. Oh, did you see the new neighbors? They only move during the day. They don't make a sound during the night. What nice people, kind of deal. And we can safely say it worked. What we did not know, however, is that we were only 3 renters when we first came in. Us on the floor, another family upstairs on the opposite side, and another one on the 3rd floor, with one empty apartment between us. Turns out the soundproof statement was accurate, but only in regards to the inside to outside situation. When our upstairs neighbors moved in, it was a dang nightmare. Sound from 5 a.m. to past midnight, 5 days in a row, dropping stuff, speaking loudly, yelling, or walking in their apartment with shoes on. Out of frustration, on the 5th day, I walk upstairs and meet my neighbor at midnight. I ask them to cease their activities for the night. I have work in the morning and I cannot be kept up all night. I understand that they were freshly moved in and they might have had a tight schedule, but midnight was too late to be moving stuff. He didn't reply and closed the door on me. I go downstairs and the sound starts over again. I notify my landlord and he tells me he'll handle it and apologized for the situation, explaining to me that my neighbor was just moving and that he probably didn't understand what I was saying because of a language barrier. The neighbors were extremely loud. I know a lot of Karens will use that as an excuse to shower their neighbors with hate, but when I say loud, I mean it. There was no stop to their loud noises. It seemed like they couldn't be bothered to hold something without dropping it, or jumping up and down on the floor, or purposefully banging the bed frame against the wall when doing stuff. I recorded the event and even installed microphones in my home jacked to my computer, activating and recording every time there's a strong vibration in the house. Over 98 events on Monday, February 14th. I was livid. I sent that to the landlord and explained that this cannot continue. First, the apartment was poorly soundproofed, which meant that we were hearing every dang sound all the time. Second, we had notified the neighbors about the situation, and they've ignored it. I have notified the landlord to awaken them to our situation. I report the issue several times and even advised my landlord that there were very heavy sounding thuds coming from upstairs, which worried me. He answered with, "Stop complaining about your neighbors already. I have other things to do." I have answered, "Understood, sir. Please be advised that this will be my last communication and action to help you in that regard." You know when I said I heard loud bangs? Turns out, our upstairs neighbor was doing bench press lifting in his living room, and the heavy thuds I kept hearing was him dropping his weights on the ground. I had warned my roommate about removing anything that she didn't want broken from the living room, and lo and behold, 4 days later, the first crack appeared. Then another. The floor was giving up. I moved the couch out of the way and moved the TV and consoles into the bedroom. Fast forward to 3 days ago. After another series of loud bangs, I heard a loud crack, followed by an "oh crap," followed by very loud noises. I went to the living room to see my neighbor on the ground with several actually gruesome injuries due to the fact that he just went through the floor and brought his bench and weight rack with him. I called an ambulance and the police. The police asked me if I reported the issue with my landlord, which I could confirm due to my communications being made via email. I sent everything, and I am now, of course, filing to break my lease due to uninhabitable dwelling. The landlord came in yesterday and just proceeded to explode. Told me that I should have made him aware that my neighbor was doing dangerous things, to which I answered I had notified him about the very loud sounds and he never investigated, and that he also ordered me to stop complaining about my neighbors. It was not my responsibility to go out of my way to protect his assets if they are unwilling to cooperate with me. My neighbor's roommate and I are now residing in a hotel until we can find a new place to live. We are now also looking towards adding a bit more salt to the injury by maybe filing for criminal negligence against both our landlord and the neighbor. The first because the apartment was apparently having some flaws, and the latter for endangering us. Had I not caught up on what caused the sound earlier, me or, God forbid, my roommate could have been under that. Anyway, it was a fun week, and I do enjoy the accommodations of my hotel. I never went to a 4-star spa-included hotel before. Turns out the chocolate on the pillow is a lie, and I'm very disappointed about that. Updates. As I have advised to a few commenters, I followed up with my roommate and she did not take pictures of the event. She got a bit mad that I asked considering what had just happened and questioned my priorities. I then explained that our Reddit story got a lot of attention and some people in the comments requested some visual proof. I will spare you her answer. I will just add that it's okay not to believe the story based on my word alone. If people actually didn't question it, I'd be worried. When I posted this story, my only intent was to share my experience and I thought, malicious compliance, neat. If there was a horrible landlord, bad neighbor Reddit I would have found prior to submitting this story, probably would have went there instead. I'll also add that I'm not an expert or an engineer. How and why something like weights and the like would cause part of the floor collapsing, I cannot say. Was there a structural damage prior? Was there water damage that was never addressed, just covered up? Was the structure just not as sound as I believed it was when I got in? I can't say. I understand some of you might have worked in construction and never have experienced such an event or have actual reasons to suspect a lie due to personal and professional experience. Once again, you can and should question anything on the internet. I just hope you also apply that kind of skepticism, and I mean wanting proof or the opinion of an actual expert prior to making a decision, to more than just Reddit post. For those who made us laugh and those who have spoken to us, who have been encouraging and constructive, people who actually gave us advice, I thank you very much. It was very nice of everyone, and I wish you the best. Update again. My brother has agreed to take the case and look at the options. We're not feeling very vindictive, and our insurance are going to cover most of the cost, so we might file for negligence. I'm not a lawyer myself, I don't know the terms in English, but basically, the landlord should have had his building inspected before renting, which was apparently not done. The landlord has apparently calmed down after the events and has apologized for everything. He has scheduled a visit from an inspector to check the integrity of the apartment and the cause of the damage that would have allowed a human and exercise equipment to go through the floor and ceiling. In exchange for not pressing charges, he has agreed to reimburse all the money we have invested into the rent, our stay at the hotel, and a little extra as an apology, and a guarantee to either repair the apartment and soundproof it properly, or if it is not an option to go back, he will relocate us onto another of his buildings, which are a lot better than what we had, reduce our rent quite significantly for as long as we stay, with papers to back his offer up, and a full year of free rent. This is actually quite generous in the current rent market. I'm leaving the final say to my roommate. On my end, I wasn't injured, she was not, and this could have been just a freak accident. Yeah, the landlord's a bit of a butt, but let's be honest, we've all had worse, landlord-wise. Plus, even if we take him up on his offers, the upstairs neighbor might be looking for some severe reparation. I mean, he did get injured after all. But we would be happy to hear about your opinion. What would you say? Would you take this further or just take the refund, plus the full year, rent-free year, and then low rent for the years to come? Final update. After a long time deciding what to do, we have opted to take the landlord's offer. However, we made it clear that we could not live under the same people if the soundproofing was not at the very least improved. We went to my brother's office and met with a colleague of his who had multiple documents for us to sign. One of them for the promise of low rent, which the landlord wanted to offer $250 off the market price, we negotiated it up to $300, was to be applied on all our leases. We have also agreed to the reimbursement of 6 months of rent, which will cover us for the next year and then some, plus the free year. We received about $5,000 each, and the landlord has agreed to cover all of the costs of the hotel we and our parent had to pay. We might be moving back into our apartment by the end of the month. It's a bit disappointing as we kinda wanted to try another place, but from what I understand, there's a very good chance our neighbors are not moving back on their end, so it might just be back to the ideal scenario. There will be very heavy renovation done and a thorough inspection of the structure before we move back in. I just want to thank everyone for their kind words, their jokes and encouragements. They have very much helped both of us and got us to smile a bit more. For the others, I do not wish anything less. I just hope you're doing well, that you are safe. I appreciate the effort of those who were still able to voice their disbelief while being respectful. And for the others, well, you know, it's the internet. What are we gonna do? I believe OP here because I actually used to be into powerlifting at novice level, and I have actually lived in an apartment once and had a bench press. I was really scared to use it, even lightweight, because damage to the floor and under it. You can do all these lifts, but they need to have proper flooring under them, the big rubber stuff, really durable, and you don't want to do it on an upstairs level. So yeah, this neighbor doing the benches was crazy. I mean, the benches itself is one thing because you always have a lot of force from like a couch or something spread out that people sit on, applying to the ground, but dropping weights on an apartment that isn't ground level, that's just so stupid. This is clearly an idiotic move on the neighbor's part. Anybody could see this. So OP, way to go on handling it. Thank you for the updates, and I wish you all the best. What do you think? Let me know. I beat the HOA. I won't be forced to join. Go Lawyers. Posted by Denakius. So, earlier this month, I purchased a property in real estate lien auction. The property was in a voluntary HOA that had 100% membership. My attorney looked into the situation and drafted a proposal and sent it to the HOA via registered mail. He drafted up a proposal agreement with the HOA with the following conditions. First off, the property owner has unrestricted access to any community-owned roadways, gates, and so on necessary to access his property. Now, this does not constitute joining the HOA also. The property owner will have to pay a figure monthly to the HOA to contribute to the non-government-owned infrastructure at his discretion. The amount is non-negotiable and not legally required. It's merely an acknowledgement that the assets exist and have cost for their upkeep. Now, the property owner will not be held to any HOA standards and does not and will not get any voting rights in the HOA also. Any further attempts to get the property owner to join will be considered harassment. Now, cashing of these attached checks constitutes agreeing to these terms, and the HOA will provide any necessary access codes for the property owner to use for visitors, contractors, and so on. They received it and signed for it. That day, the harassment from the HOA stopped. A week later, their attorney sent back a response. Danakius. The HOA board has met. They do not appreciate your unneighborly attitude and are not agreeing to your terms. However, they acknowledge that your claim to unrestricted access to your property may have legal merit if the issue is taken to court. I have been instructed to give you a gate access code attached below. You will not be given a key fob to the gate, as it would give you unrestricted access to their clubhouse. Furthermore, they are notifying you of the following. The roadway and sidewalk are both HOA property, and they reserve the right to remove any illegally parked vehicles or other property. This is, however, a legal acknowledgement that you will not be held to their community standards. They are also requesting some leeway regarding harassment, as community notices may inadvertently be delivered. Finally, they are returning the check uncashed. Signed, the HOA attorney. I'm not quite understanding how. This doesn't constitute them agreeing to my terms, though. They are giving me everything I want and are turning down my gift towards the upkeep of the road and gate. Updates in the comments. Sean BZA posts this and OP replies with more. He says, you have access, so you can give the key code out to anybody who wants to visit you or has to come to you. So you cannot park on the road or the sidewalk, so it's time to put up a nice fence up on the edge of your property with the no trespassing signs on it, paint a yellow line at the border with your driveway and the sidewalk, and keep the number of the HOA towing company, should be posted by the gate, in your phone to call for towing if anybody parks by the driveway, plus a camera to cover this area as well. They change the gate code immediately, you sue them, especially if you were not communicated in this in advance. Also, invite all of your immediate neighbors over for a welcome party to make yourself known as the good person in the area. And OP replies, yeah, the only thing you left out was a gaudy neon paint job on the house and an inflatable hot tub in the front yard and 8 non-functioning vehicles in the front yard. I mean, as long as I'm not blocking the driveway, right? So I put in a call to a solar company to come out and to do a quote on installing solar, completely not allowed by the HOA bylaws. So gonna have to do it for sure. Now note, I'm not gonna finance it, no contract and so on. That's how those turkeys make their money. All joking aside, today I mowed my lawn, started at 7 a.m. before it got too hot and knocked that out. Since I measured twice, I'm going to cancel my long-term parking for my RV and move it there since my driveway is plenty long enough. Plus, I can sleep in the RV while I'm getting the house into livable shape. I'd throw a party, but the big issue with that is that it's not livable yet, as in, it's a toxic disaster and I can't live in it. I have a call for a 12-foot dumpster to come in as well, and the trash company is going to drop it in the driveway. I'm also in the market for the tallest and ugliest ham radio tower I can get. No actual interest in using though, just in case. Sean replies, keep the neighbors happy, just put solar on and enough LED spots all aimed to cover the property without spill that the street lights look dim by comparison. Dumpster on the lawn, not on the street. You can fix the lawn after it leaves, citing the reason it is on the lawn as the HOA busybodies not wanting it on the street for some reason, so lawn it is. No need for a tower, just look at the approved color list and paint just a few shades different, not garish, just enough to distinguish from the surrounds. Follow with making the contrasting colors different from the rest and put a nice door trim color in. Subtle, but it works so much better. Oh yes, first find the boundaries and mark them off with some post and danger tape and follow up with that orange construction temporary plastic fencing because you're going to be working there and want to not damage the HOA property in any way. Safety first. Nothing ticks off the busybody Karens more than subtle, especially if you're keeping within the letter of the law for the township you are in, but not the HOA ones. And OP replies, once I move in, I'm getting an above ground pool because the HOA rules say no. Commenter Little Bit Evil says, I don't see an attorney using unprofessional language as in unneighborly attitude. I'm doubting it was an attorney who responded, and impersonating one could cause trouble. I'm sure your attorney is going to have some fun, especially over the roads and sidewalks part. OP replies, screw them either way. They stopped harassing me about joining and hopefully took the hint. In reply, I'm betting since it's a voluntary HOA, the street and the sidewalk are still city easements. Your local clerk can confirm if you show them any documents of the HOA trying to claim ownership, and then the city will have legal grounds for action. OP replies, the legal status is convoluted. It's not mandatory, but they only sold the properties to people who signed the HOA documents. One of the first documents they force you to sign is a right of first refusal when selling the property, as in, you are giving the HOA the right of first refusal. In simple terms, if the person you're selling to doesn't want to sign the HOA documents, the HOA can instead buy the property back for the same price you're offering it for and then resell it themselves, but only to someone who signs the documents. Instead of doing all that, they can just butt their heads in and threaten the buyer with blocking their sale unless they sign the HOA documents. This has kept HOA membership at 100%. Until I came around. I bypassed all of the signing of the HOA by buying the property at a sheriff's auction. The state gave no craps about the contract. All they cared about was the court orders to sell the property to repay the lien holders. Holy cow, someone impersonating an attorney would be insane. Now this is an example here of someone just knowing the rules and dropping the hammer in saying, hey, I know this is in the HOA, I'm not going to stand for it. Here is a 7 to 8 stipulation letter saying, here's what's up, I'm going to even give you money to help this cause. And they get written back by a greedy HOA that says, all right, we're just going to legally do what we have to do here. We're not going to go the whole 9 yards for you. We're not even going to cash your check. We don't want that looming over our head that you have just paid us this money. Because this is our area, we own this place, and you don't. We're just going to tolerate you being here. OP, way to stand your ground, and funny little mentions in the comments there of what you could see happening and what you want to do next. Way to go, OP. Let me know what you think. My 25-year-old female boyfriend, 28 male, and I want to avoid our relationship with our begging neighbor, 50-year-old female, who is our HOA president. Posted by Naughty Messy. I, 25-year-old female, live in a condo, which is bought and not rented, building with my boyfriend, who's 28. We've known our neighbor, Elle, who's in her 50s, pretty much since we moved in nearly 2 years ago. Elle lives alone in a very small condo, which is located at the entrance of our building. It has a window which overlooks the entryway. She's always been a bit nosy with ours and other neighbors' business. When we first met, Elle was nice enough and seemed very concerned about the building administration and my country's version of an HOA, or whatever the equivalent is for condos. At the time, my boyfriend and I made friends with Elle because we needed her and other neighbors' support to vote out the previous HOA board who weren't managing anything and spent our money without justification. We had a few meetings inside our condo with Elle and other neighbors to organize. Eventually, Elle ended up being selected HOA president via random draw. She is a decent building administrator who has help from another neighbor who was selected as treasurer. Since then, however, Elle's nosy and overbearing tendencies have come to light. She would frequently stop by my boyfriend or I at the building entrance or in her condo and keep us tied up in conversation, mostly her monologue about some health or personal problem of hers, and sometimes for hours. It got to the point where my boyfriend and I were tiptoeing when entering the building in the evening so as to not be waylaid. At one point, starting a few months ago, Elle mentioned during a monologue that she was having health problems and financial issues. Elle began offering homemade cakes and sweets for sale to the neighbors and us to try to raise money. My boyfriend, who felt bad for Elle, kept buying regularly, to the point where we had cake slices several times a week for a few weeks on end. Because Elle has our phone numbers from the group chat for the condo, she would call or message my boyfriend or I several times a day on the days that she brought cake to sell in order to get us to buy from her. If we didn't answer right away, she would come and ring our doorbell several times, very loudly, until she either gave up or my boyfriend and I gave in. This has even happened as late as 10 p.m. I work from home and I finally got so fed up with all the calls and messages that I blocked Elle from messaging or calling me. This progressed until she was no longer able to continue selling cakes, and all stopped for a while. Then, a couple of months ago, Elle managed to stop my boyfriend by the building entrance again, tell him a sob story, and ask for some money which she would pay back. He gave in, to the tune of about $20 in our local currency. I knew at the time this was a bad decision, but I bit my tongue while I waited to see how it would play out. Finally, Elle finished paying my boyfriend and I back earlier this week. However, she's since been coming around again at night to ring the doorbell. Just now, she rang 5 times without answer before finally getting the point and leaving. My boyfriend and I are sick and tired of having our peace interrupted. I'm no longer answering the door or any calls, and neither is he. The problem is that Elle is still our building president for the next year, and so we can't ghost her entirely. I want to find a way to politely tell Elle that boyfriend and I are no longer interested in a friendship outside of the passing hello. What advice do you have for handling Elle and her annoying interruptions? We feel bad for her problems, but we can't handle regular chats or supporting her with handouts anymore. Updates from OP in the comments section. One commenter, Battle of Lisa, says, "Your boyfriend really needs to put his foot down as hard as you're trying, having a convo, and really be on the same page if she asks for money or conversation or texts or rings again. I know confrontation is scary, but you need to give this woman clear boundaries. I'd also start recording in detail every single interaction, be it a conversation, a doorbell, or an ignored call, down to the time and date. I'd also suggest writing a polite letter and keep a copy for yourself." And OP replies, "Thanks, I'll try to have a deeper conversation with him about it tomorrow and keeping track of her behavior. I'll talk to him about the letter. Mostly, I just want to create a polite distance with our neighbor, but I understand that she probably thinks we're more friendly than we actually are. I also recognize that she's likely to feel hurt by us backing out of the relationship, which is why this needs to be done gently but firmly." Another commenter asked OP, "What rules are in place for being a president? How are the board members voted on, like the length of term? Make it a point to be on a call. Call a friend before entering and make it seem important. When she tries to talk, say, 'Hold on' to the call and explain you will talk later as the call is important." And OP replies, "The whole president thing is messy. She was chosen by random draw out of a hat because no one volunteered to run. The position lasts 2 years and has been going on for nearly 1. There's no set rules on what powers that she has, but basically, she's our representative when it comes to dealing with things like maintenance issues. She's also in charge of calling meetings of the neighbors to decide on building issues. I make a point never to hang around the entryway and always have an excuse ready. It makes me sad to have to buzz by because I used to be able to stop and chat with the doorman who was friendly. Elle mostly gets under my skin because of her persistence, even when to me it's clear that we're no longer interested in friendly chats or helping her out. It's one thing to knock or call once or twice and then go away, but it's another to ring 5 times and call multiple times in a day over a non-emergency." This commenter suggests that every interruption needs to be, "Sorry, I don't have time to talk right now." And OP replies, "I've been either doing this or ignoring her completely. She doesn't seem to get it and keeps pushing. I forgot to mention that she rang the doorbell about 5 times yesterday evening as well." Oh man, this is like one of those toxic narcissist situations to where you do a thing called gray rocking, or you basically cut them out, low contact except for what you need to. They know there's no relationship, but you just business. Business time is all it is, not like the Flight of the Conchords reference, if you know what I mean, but knowing that, hey, you're here as you're living in the building, you're the manager, that's all we're going to make this thing, right? That's thanks for selling us baking stuff, we're not going to buy anymore. You do your thing, we'll do ours. We will coexist peacefully without a deep, friendly relationship and just be business partners, essentially. Let me know what you think as well. And OP, I hope it gets better for you. You are on the right track. Karen versus Baby. Baby wins. Posted by Jinx Mama. This happened when our oldest, now in her 20s, was a baby. I was laid off from my job 2 days before I gave birth to our first child. Believe me when I tell you, it was financially rough. But the 5 months that I had home with her were pretty awesome. I breastfed both of our children. This is not a pro or a con breastfeeding post, so don't come for me. and I felt that, as long as I was covered, I could feed my child anywhere I wanted to. I breastfed in malls, restaurants, church, doctors' offices, you name it. And yes, this is not the only Karen story I have about breastfeeding, but it is one of the funniest. So picture it. It's a beautiful fall afternoon, and my daughter and I have headed to the park to go for a walk. But just as we arrive, my daughter decided that she was a little peckish. I pulled her out of her car seat, climbed into the passenger seat, rolled down the windows, and started feeding my kid. This wasn't the first time I had found myself in the car feeding my kid, so I had a stack of magazines that I would pull out to thumb through while my kid ate. I should mention that my kid was a sipper, so breastfeeding took a minute. Now, I had parked my van so that the front was facing a copse of trees. To see in my window, you had to walk over to the van. I was trying to be respectful and park it in the shade. Okay, mostly the shade part. We had been sitting there for a while before I hear ahem outside my window. I look up and there is this stern woman glaring at us. The woman, let's just call her Karen, proceeds to tell me that I am essaying my child by breastfeeding her. Say what now? I was completely stunned, and I was trying to just come up with a response when my daughter pulls herself off of my breast and blows a raspberry at Karen. Daughter wasn't making a comment, she was just trying to clean out the extra milk in her mouth, but it was funny as heck to see this woman's shocked face when my kid can basically spit at her for insulting her mom. I don't remember exactly what I said after that. It was probably something along the lines of what she said, but I do remember laughing my butt off as Karen walked away. Hey Karen, don't come for my kid. She'll get you every time. Now let's just be honest here. This Karen was living in competition and all OP wanted was her peace of mind. Call it Boston. Well, here's the thing. You are literally feeding your child that is hungry, doing it respectfully, doing it properly, with regard for the other patrons around you, and still yet the Karen walks around the long way to see what's going on to find a reason to be upset, as they always do with, as I've told you before, their scientific half of a brain. That's all they have. And OP just handles this gracefully. It's so funny too that with this grace, the daughter just goes brrr and just blows the raspberry and just ticks off the Karen, who has to get out of here because she has lost. OP and the hungry daughter have won. Way to go, OP. Do you think this is bullcrap as well? You will not be able to make it through this story without losing faith in humanity, okay? Here it is. It's called You Forgot Your Baby, posted by UBT400. Let the Karens begin. Years ago, I worked at a liquor store. Needless to say, when you work in retail of a controlled substance, you've seen everything. One time, I was at the register. I was wrestling with the receipt printer or something behind the counter. I ducked under the counter to fiddle with the cord when I heard the bell of a door. I looked up to say, "Good morning." There was a woman with a baby on her hip, maybe a 7 or 8 month old. I let her know that I was there to help and answer questions if needed, and went back to fiddling under the counter. I heard her approach, but then walk away without saying anything. Next thing I know, little hands are grabbing at my hair. I look up and her baby is on the counter. The mother is nowhere nearby. I quickly grabbed the baby and sat them on the counter so it wouldn't crawl anymore or fall off of the counter, and then I looked around. The mother was a few aisles away at that point. I was more than a little stunned and called out, "Ma'am, you forgot your baby." She turned to me and said something to the liking of, you said that you would help? It's easier to shop while I'm not holding him, duh." I told her there were shopping carts that had baby seats. Please use them. I don't want to be responsible for her child. She rolled her eyes and grabbed 2 bottles of whatever the heck and came back to the counter. She paid, picked up her child, and left. She didn't even tell me she was leaving the kid at the counter, just sat them down and walked away without a word. I know, if that baby fell, she would have blamed or tried to sue me. You ever see something in your life and you know it's like, man, this is a short story. I usually like to do long, in-depth stories, but I saw this and I knew that I had to read it. Like, holy freaking crap. There is not much to say other than this is peak Karening. And if you are able to keep a straight face while listening to this story, you did better than 99% of the population. This is bat crap insane. Karen has a quarter brain. I always say Karens have a half a brain scientifically. This one has a quarter, if we're lucky. That quarter has been stomped on, lost, rubbed in dog crap. Who knows where it's been? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Let me know what you think, and way to go, OP. Gosh. Oh, this Karen shopper makes fun of OP, who has no filter and almost gets fired. Here we go. How I told a customer to go F themselves, but they had my back and saved my job. Posted by the Askew one. Guess who nearly got their butt fired? So, the last few days have been tough for reasons not related to work. I'm on edge and my trigger is shorter than the usual. I'm nearing the end of my shift. I'm tired. We're understaffed, my back aches, and there are long lines at the registers. I mean, a kid is having a tantrum, it's chaos, and that's the moment when my manager decides to pull me away from the customer service desk because there's been a spill, and Bradley is new and doesn't seem to be able to clean it by himself. Thing is, I'm alone at the customer service desk running returns that won't process for no reason. There are 4 people waiting, and they look like they're ticked, and rightfully so. We've been so understaffed lately that customer service has been crap. There's a guy who's in the line, and he has been for at least 10 minutes. That's how good our customer service has become, and he overhears my manager asking me to take care of the spill. He goes, "Hey, what about you don't ask the special needs guy to clean? It's gonna take forever." That's when I hear myself answer, "Hey, how about you go screw yourself?" A few very long seconds of deadly silence. My manager looking at me in horror, and I'm just here with my mouth still open and dying inside. Karen customer says, "Fair enough." I said, "I'm sorry. I don't know what possessed me. I apologize. I'm really sorry." Customer says, No, fair enough. I mean, I shouldn't have called you special needs. It was very inappropriate. I deserved it. That wasn't a thing to say. Actually, well, I apologize. Don't worry about it. We all have a short fuse at times. Actually, that was rather funny." I reply, "Well, sir, I can just say it's not how I do customer service usually. Again, I apologize." Thankfully, his wife or girlfriend, who was waiting nearby, found the situation hilarious too, and that helped defuse everything. The customer went to talk to my manager, who seemed to be under shock, and asked him not to chew my butt out because he had said something inappropriate first, and we all make mistakes. Needless to say, I thanked him profusely. My manager sent me to clean the spill and then called me to the office. I got a write-up, but I'm not being fired. We all write to complain about bad customers, so I thought it was only fair to mention how a good customer saved me from my own screw-up. And now I'm going to work on understanding why being called special needs made me irrationally angry. Now that's a twist and flip that you do not normally see. The Karen really stepped in doing typical Karen things. OP slaps back in a way that was unexpected, and then Karen's like, "Oh yeah, you're right." And then a happy ending that could have been bad because OP literally almost got fired for that in the workplace. But I think it's a crazy ending to see a Karen get flipped around like this. What do you think? Way to go, OP. Karen neighbor keeps calling the police and fire department over fire pit smoke nuisance. Posted by Athena Doss M. Now this was posted in the legal advice subreddit, but this reading is not legal advice, but it's just some crazy Karens. Here we go. We have lived in our Texas home since 2016 and we own it. It's always been our understanding that recreational outdoor burning is allowed within our city. I checked the city code and there is no HOA. And we have had a fire pit in the same location since shortly after we moved. Our outdoor fire pit sits next to our pool and meets city code requirements, like we have a certificate from the fire department, for instance, and it's located approximately 25 to 30 feet from my next door neighbor's windows. Ever since we moved to our home, we have attempted to maintain a good relationship with all our neighbors and believe that we have gone above and beyond in trying to be friendly with our next door neighbors. Enter Karen. Which we used to have over for drinks by the fire, game night, and so on, maybe every other month for about the first 5 years. However, the police and fire department has been dispatched to our home 3 times within the past 5 weeks at the request of Karen. Even my 4 kids had to experience this because of what they are calling a smoke nuisance complaint inside her house. She says the inside of her house has a strong smell of smoke, that she can't sleep because of it, although we know she's a night owl. And she even claimed once that her kid had a cough the next day, but they run an illegal dog adoption agency out of her house, and there are normally 8 to 15 dogs in her house, making me think it could all be just the pet dandruff. Either way, each time the police and fire department came, we were asked to shut it down, and we complied. I tried reasoning with Karen and offered to plant a second tree barrier when we already have pear trees that block her house but go bare in the winter, but she declined. Her only solution is for us to move the pit. After the 3rd time this happened, I went down to the police and fire department to request in writing that they stop taking her work as factual and truly investigate inside her home regarding this smoke nuisance. Lo and behold, the 4th time she called the PD, the police officer dispatched went inside her house, and he stated there wasn't even a faint smell of smoke inside of her house, so he indicated there was no nuisance. To be clear, nothing has changed with the fire pit. What has changed is the fact that we no longer pet sit for them multiple times a year or invite them over for drinks by the fire, same which they used to enjoy and had no smoke nuisance complaint about, due to their constant attempt to control what we do with our fence upgrades, pool upgrades, and exterior paint, and in our house, their needy friendship, and the incessant special request. I have text with proof for all of these. It is our true belief that the main reason they are now complaining of smoke nuisance is the fact that we still invite 1 or 2 other neighboring couples to come to drink by the fire at our house about once or twice a month, and they are not being included. Otherwise, we cannot explain why Karen, during the course of 2016 through 2021, never complained about the smoke until after they stopped being invited. We are not the only neighbors that Karen has called the city on. There is an ongoing history of them not getting along with their neighbors, and it seems like their go-to plan of action mostly consists of placing complaints with the city to make their surrounding neighbors comply with their stupid request, and other neighbors can corroborate. With this said, we find their use of emergency calls to 911, false reporting on our legal fire pit, misuse of city resources, and believe they are using the police and the fire department as a form of harassment against us to scare and annoy us for no valid reason. We Googled the Texas Supreme Court findings on what constitutes a nuisance, and it says, a condition that substantially interferes with the use and enjoyment of land by causing unreasonable discomfort or annoyance to persons of ordinary sensibilities attempting to use and enjoy it. And keep in mind, Karen is claiming that our smoke is a nuisance inside their home, not outside. I know that she will continue calling the PD and fire department on us from here on out, and we would like a second opinion on placing a harassment complaint or how we can make her stop calling the PD and fire department each time we have a fire. An update in the comments, one person suggests if the smoke bothers her and causes her unreasonable discomfort or annoyance, you can't stop her from reporting it. That isn't harassment. OP says, it is when she keeps calling the PD and fire department on us because she is no longer being invited without a real reason. The proof is in the last police officer not being able to smell any smoke inside her house. For it to be a nuisance, doesn't she have to prove it substantially interferes and creates unreasonable discomfort? The police officer had an ordinary sense of smell and could not detect any smoke smell inside her house. Now, this was the first time that they went in to investigate if her claim was factual. I thought it was insufficient for her to claim private nuisance without her proving how it's impacting her. Now, everywhere that I've lived, the rules are you do not put in fake calls on the police or the fire. This is not like a legal advice thing. This is a, hey, don't do this. You can get in a lot of trouble for this. I mean, think about where you live. If you were to call 911 or whatever you like, or if you call the fire department and say there's a problem, if they are using their resources and workers to come out and check you and nothing is wrong, you can get in major trouble for that, I thought. But hey, I could be wrong, maybe it's just the areas I live, but in all my life, I've always learned, even as a kid growing up years and years ago, you do not do this stuff unless there's an actual emergency. That's the way I was raised, at least. And my parents and I weren't lawyers to try to figure this out either. What do you think? I got fined by an HOA that I'm not even part of. Posted by PM Georgia O'Keefe. My mother-in-law is the president of her condo owners association. Back in January, she ended up in the hospital for emergency surgery and was in the ICU for a few weeks recovering, and she's fine now. During this period, there was going to be some work done to a few of the units, and the maintenance guy needed the keys from the association. They were all in my mother-in-law's condo. It happened to be on the way home from work, so I said that I would get them the keys. While I'm there, I discover that the tumbler in her doorknob completely comes out of the knob, generally ruining the point of having a lock. I hit the hardware store down the street, get a new lock set, swap it out, and call it a day. On the next hospital visit, I give her the keys and the extra copies that I'd made. Good, great, and grand. The next week, I'm stopping by her condo to get mail and water plants. The maintenance guy sees I'm there and brings back the association keys to put back in mother-in-law's safe. He commented that he tried to do it earlier, but her key didn't work. I explained the situation. He's a nice guy, nods his head, but gave me a heads up that he had told the VP of the board about it and said that I should call him. I do. The guy explains that it is association policy that the association always has a copy of the key for the units in case of emergency and so on. I listen, I explain, and say that mother-in-law, the president, has all the copies, so technically the association does have a copy. Plus, it's an extenuating circumstance. VP is having none of it. I'm there a few days later to do mail and plants again when the maintenance guy knocks on the door. He's the messenger but needs to issue me a fine. $75. I thought it was a joke, but he hands over a letter saying that since I changed the lock set, I'm at fault. I took the letter, which asked for my official mailing address and social security number for their records in case of default on payment. It all ended up getting resolved, and because mother-in-law was already in a world of crap following surgery, I didn't make a stink of it. But the frickin' balls on the VP when he got a second of power. Updates and more info from OP. Tiger USF asked in the comments, I'm 99% sure they could never fine you. It'd be her, the owner. Ultra petty though. And OP replies, oh, I'm 100% sure. I threw out the letter. Apparently, they use a PM company that handles all the fines, so not sure where this VP got the idea of doing this. Maybe because I didn't grovel at their feet? Mother-in-law was ticked when she learned of it after getting discharged. Lufa of Doom asked OP, I'd make them famous. Tell the local news station they love this type of crap from the populace. Put the VP's name out there. If he's going to be petty, make him famous and petty. And OP replies, like I said, my mother-in-law is president of the association and just got back from emergency surgery. I didn't want to screw up her world. Crimson 7 asked OP, if she really was ticked, she screwed up his world something special, as she should have. As OP replies, sadly, no. Kind old lady. And Six Bubbles says, kind does not equal doormat. I mean, do they not know who they were working with here? You had your reasons and your actions that you did what you did. You said, hey, we got all the keys already technically because she has this much power in it. And then to try and say they would be able to fine you is sketchy because they should not be able to take you down for something like that. OP, you stood your ground. You did your job very well. Way to go. No, Karen, I won't wash your car. Posted by Potential Drive 8623. This happened 3 days ago, and I still don't know what Karen was thinking, but working in retail for close to 20 years, I'm not shocked. So we have me as the OP, we have Karen, the neighbor guy, and then the guy who owns the lodge. Okay, so the setting. It's a hot and sunny Thursday afternoon, and I wrapped up work since I work very early mornings on Thursdays, and I get the afternoon off. I decided to wash my car since it got covered in dust from gravel roads, and being surrounded by lakes, the front gets covered in bugs. Gross, I know. So I break out my equipment power washer, foam blaster, buckets, new car soap, speaker to listen to music, and a little cooler with refreshments. I just finished spraying my car to spray soap on to clean when my neighbor, who was also washing his Escalade, waved me over. Neighbor says, "Hey OP, can I ask you for some help?" I say, "Yeah, sure, what's up?" "Hey, can you blast that dirt off of the bottom for me? The missus took the car out and somehow this happened." I took a quick look. It's got some mud, pretty good caked on, but not impossible to get off. "Yeah, sure," I say, "this'll just take just a couple minutes or so." So I brought my pressure washer over, turned it on, and started spraying the dirt off while rocking out the Nickelback. Only took about 3, maybe 4 minutes, and I got it off. Neighbor says, "Hey, those things work great cleaning. I need to invest in one. Thanks, OP." I say, "Sure thing, neighbor. Happy to help." So I wrapped up and resumed my car washing while enjoying Nickelback's album Dark Horse when a dirty Lincoln stops behind my car and the lady is waving me over. Now I should explain that I live at the end of the road and we don't have anything people would drive to unless you're visiting someone, and the main road is close to 8 blocks away. So yeah, not many cars drive by my house. Anyway, I walk up to the lady's car to see what she wants. Maybe she's lost or she can't find someone's house. Nope, I was wrong. Here's the conversation. I say, "Yes, can I help you, ma'am?" And she says, "Yes, since you just finished, can you wash my car? Also, I'd like the seats and carpets cleaned as well." I'm confused for a minute and I reply, wait, what? Didn't you hear what I said? I'd like my car cleaned. I just got this and it's already got dirt and bugs on it." "Sorry, but no, I'm not going to. But there is a couple of car washes down the main street and I think the shops offer it too." Karen, who clearly never was told no, looks at me and goes, "Why would I do that? You have everything to do it here. Just do it. You wash that guy's car. Now do the same for me and make sure to use wax as well." I reply, No, I didn't wash his car. I just quickly helped him to get the dirt off. I'm only washing my car." "What did you say? Fine. How much for a wash?" she replies. What? What? Can't you hear? I said how much." "Lady, I don't know who you are, and frankly, I don't care. I'm only washing my car. If you need your car washed, go downtown." "What now? Honestly, what is wrong with you kids today? You don't want to work and get money. This is ridiculous." She did go into a little tirade that I won't go into, but then she gassed it down towards Main Street. I look at my neighbor. We both shook our heads and resumed what we were doing. About 3 hours later, I was busy playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 when someone rang my doorbell. I stopped playing and I went to go see who it was, and I opened the door and I see a guy standing there. He says, "Hi, I'm the guy who owns the lodge. Did a lady ask you if you can wash her car?" I reply, "Yeah, some lady did, and she acted kind of like a toddler when I told her no. Why?" He says, "That lady was complaining that the guy over there was rude and didn't want to help her. If you see her, just ignore her. I'm not going to let them stay here anymore. The husband is nice, but she's a piece of work." So I reply, "Okay, sure, but just out of curiosity, there's a lodge over there?" The other guy laughs and says, "Yeah, we only do it over the summer and about 3 weeks during the winter." So in one day, I learned that Karens can come at you anywhere and anytime, and I live about 2 blocks away from a lodge. A very interesting day. So funny update here, a commenter says, "You had a chance to go, how much? $10? No, $10,000. No refunds or reclamations payable in advance." And OP says, "I should have, but after working 10 hours, I wasn't thinking, but if it happens again, I will." Now, the funny, interesting part about this is that the Karen assumed that OP was running a car wash over here, apparently, and then just ran up to him and like, "Hey, wash my car," thinking that he would be like, I can't say no. Yeah, sure, I'll do it too. But the fact of the matter is, you ran into somebody who can say no and who is not putting up with your crap, and therefore you just got turned down, Karen. OP, way to go sticking your ground. That is what you need to do in this situation to come out on top. What do you think? Neighbor is back crap crazy, pretending to be an HOA president, charging us fake fees, and saying she owns the outside entirely. Posted by Snooperoo. Now this was posted in the Legal Advice subreddit, but this is not legal advice. This is a reading of a crazy story. Here we go. Hi guys, this is gonna be a doozy, but we really need some help. We just moved into a duplex and our Karen neighbor is an actual nutcase. We are friends with the landlord's daughter, and we actually have discussed how crazy this woman is, and for convenience, I will refer to her as the Karen, because she must be patient zero of this Karen epidemic. We've discussed how the Karen has got herself into some legal trouble with the past owner and the past tenant. We don't know the exact details, which we plan on trying to get, but don't know if we can get much about the past tenant, as they basically zipped off across country once they realized that Karen will not stop. But we know that the past owner sued her and that the past tenant had a restraining order against her from assault, and she got arrested shortly for not giving a rat's butt about the order and still harassed them. We thought we knew what we were getting into moving into the duplex. 2 days before the move, we Amazoned a package over. Specifically, one that just contained window films and a curtain rod, as we have no blinds or curtains of any sort in the rental, and we wanted to install them as soon as we moved in. We knew how crazy the Karen was and didn't want to put our real name in it, which I realized might have been a bad decision. And I thought it'd be funny to put a secession reference in and address it to first name of Mo, last name of Lester. It was delivered a few hours before we arrived to move, and Amazon even took a photo of the package delivered. When we arrived yesterday, it was gone. We're pretty sure that Karen full-blown stole it, but we don't have any footage, although she does have cameras set up around the property for her own self, which in itself alone is kind of invasive and creepy. We don't know if we should report her, and who we would even report this to. We really wanted to use it, and now we have no privacy whatsoever, and we're currently very low on money due to the move, so we can't just get another one. As we were moving yesterday, which was so stressful, and I was running on 2 hours of sleep, she just comes on over and practically demands that we talk to her by saying that she wanted to get to know us and quickly go over the rules of occupying our side of the duplex. My husband didn't even want to really entertain her and said, we might have a few minutes. But she said, well, this is going to take more than a few minutes, and I am the president of the HOA committee. She was immediately extremely confrontational, and it was as if we were being interrogated when she asked our names and even wanted us to show her our faces as we were wearing face masks, and we still wear face masks to avoid COVID. She started just yapping about how we only may do modifications to the rental inside, as she owns the entire property outside. No bright or patterned curtains or blinds, as it's inconsistent with the aesthetic, and even claims she has full access to our basement, which is not true. Our landlord's daughter was saying that the HOA bylaws state that the outside property is not 50-50 and nobody owns more or less than the other when it comes to the outside. We simply share it. She was just spitting out lies after lies and even claiming that our landlord is basically nasty and created so many problems for her. Funnily enough, the problems that she stated our landlord gave her are the problems that she gave to our landlord and her daughter. She also gave us these 2 supposed legal documents she wanted to sign, like us understanding the rules of the HOA and the property and our application for renting this property. This document says we need to pay her a few fees, such as the application fee, which is non-refundable, $100 per person. Pet fees, water fees, even though our landlord has been paying the water bill and she hasn't, and so on. How do we go about this? Are we legally liable for anything? Do we get a lawyer ready or what? We do not want her to continuously harass us, and we do not want to pay her for such fees. She pretends to be the president of the HOA and gives our landlord and her daughter fake legal papers that state they need to pay her, so we are expecting that she will hand some over to us as well. We really do not want to go through all the fighting her with it not resulting to anything and her just harassing us our entire lease. Our landlord's daughter said that she's basically been in hiding to avoid the process server that has been trying to serve her, so she was surprised that she came out of her cave to talk to us. We are wondering if there's anything we can do to stop her in the future from giving us legal documents that have fake fees and rules, and how to tell her that we can actually use the lawn in the backyard. We already have a recording of the entire conversation we had yesterday for future reference should we proceed anything legal with her ourselves. We already have the contact info of the previous owner who previously sued her, and we will ask what the full case against her is of our landlord and her daughter. We just want to know what to do on our end, as we are the one facing her ugly head. Now there's an update in the comments. One poster asked OP, I would not accept any paperwork from her and would not speak to her either, politely but firmly refuse and state, as renters, we have no legal relationship with you, only with our landlord. You must direct any questions to the landlord and all communications must go through our landlord. An HOA is for owners only. We are not owners. And OP says, thanks so much for this. We honestly feel like a deer in headlights being in this situation, but your comment has calmed us down a lot. As someone who's not a lawyer, reading this crazy story has got me thinking, like, how do you do something posing as someone else in legal matters and not expect to be caught eventually? I mean, surely someone is eventually going to drop this hammer down and say, hey, you're just trying to take advantage of me. You don't really own this thing. You're making it all up. And of course, the Karen will just try to get away with it, and maybe she did with someone else before, which is why she continues to do it to this day. But now OP has wisened up to the situation, and Karen has finally met her match. What do you think? Wild story, OP. New boss gives angry me an impossible task, posted by MD Laplup. I don't know if this is exactly malicious compliance, it's kind of a revenge story. I used to work for a big IT consulting company notorious for not paying overtime. I worked for a client's migration project for almost 1.5 years, leading the functional migration team. The three of us worked for the client 3 years before the start of the migration project, so we knew the data that we had to migrate, all the nuances, and 2 weeks before the migration date, 99% of that data was already migrated and validated. We only did the day-by-day new data and sag off pretty much those last 2 weeks. The other manager that outranked me became extremely angry about our calmness because the part that she led was behind schedule due to bad scheduling, and everyone was being overworked because of her mishaps. Come migration date, which was Saturday starting at 9 a.m., everyone was expecting long hours of work. But we clocked out at noon with the data validated with the client and the go-ahead signed, sealed, and delivered. My team got a written commendation from the client. The manager's team spent the entire weekend there. She got a complaint letter from the client. The manager complained about us and made me and my senior analyst spend the next month waiting for incidences and bugs and complaints. We got 5 in the whole month. My senior analyst spent 8 hours a day studying a new language, and I took the chance to update my CV because I wanted out and pretty much help a couple former colleagues that needed to solve bugs and problems within the manager's team's responsibilities. A couple of weeks later, evaluation time. At the IT company, everyone was graded A to D, A being exceeding expectations and D being you're out of here. B was good and C was pretty much I'm starting to think you might not be good to work here. Given the commendation from the client, I was expecting an A. My evaluation was done by the manager and my mentor, which was a close friend with the manager. They gave me a C because we didn't see any pressure on your work and you certainly lack motivation. I complained and took a long overdue, already planned month-long vacation. This was June. After that, back at work, I was assigned to a project on another client led by manager's husband. he wanted me to prepare 122 integrations with different systems in 4 months. I told him that in the previous project led by his wife, they took 2 years to have 12 integrations ready, but I would give it a shot. I even emailed him the planning where it clearly showed the time they took. 2 of those months were July and August, months that pretty much everyone on the client goes on holiday. Manager and wife also went on holiday pretty much all of August. I spent those 2 months chasing people around the client's office, but starting September, 6 integrations were closed and 6 more were almost closed pending validation. Manager came back from holidays and was furious. He called me a slacker and started telling me that his wife was right, that I lacked motivation, and that I would need to spend the rest of the project duration working till midnight to make up for the lost time. And I said, no, I won't do an hour more than what you're paying. I told you that your expectations were unrealistic, and you went ahead with them anyways. He went ballistic. And I replied, I just lack motivation to work in your project. I want out of the project. I was out of the project in no time. I got a call from my mentor. She said that they were evaluating firing me without pay because of this. I told them about the unrealistic planning, and she said that I was being unrealistic and that the planning was good. I produced the email that I sent the manager. My mentor went quiet. A minute later, she told me, what do you want? If you can't guarantee that I won't do an hour of overtime ever again, I want out, full severance, and then some, and I want the company to make it look like I quit, not that you fired me. She went quiet again. She said she'll see what she could do. I was out of there, smiling by the end of the day. Update. From the team that remained in the project, 4 guys were on my team before the migration project. They all complained, and they all got out of the project as well. As far as I know, the project took twice the expected time to be completed. Manager's husband got nearly fired. The wife held a lot of power and managed to save his butt. I mean, this manager and mentor combo, are they really a mentor if they're going to be going against you like that? They're supposed to be fighting in your corner. And no, they're just buddied up and they think that they have this unstoppable force that no one can go against. They take down all the workers, they do what they want, but when OP hits the scene, he says, hey, this is what I want, this is what's going to happen, I am doing the work, you don't like the way I'm doing it, but this is what's getting done. Your demands are unrealistic, so I'm going to do what I know to do. And that ended up being the right play as OP holds the power here and decides his fate and what happens next. Way to go, OP, and let me know what you think. Loss Prevention wants us to put in service calls, posted by Cole Carmot. I work for a printing company, and as I tell a lot of people, much of my job is literally malicious compliance. People wanting things printed despite how they look, spelling and design errors, and just being plain ugly. This is another story that has come up these past 2 weeks. A while ago, one of the other locations absolutely destroyed one of their printers. Toner everywhere. The finisher unit was a hunk of plastic and metal, and I genuinely don't know what they did to the machine, but it was screwed up beyond all recognition based on the photo, especially since the toner cartridge is not in that finisher unit. An investigation took place, and it was discovered that rather than calling in printer technicians to repair the machines, some of the company employees were repairing them instead. A company-wide message went out essentially telling everyone not to repair or perform maintenance on the machine ourselves. Genuinely, common sense things had to be put on paper because someone did something stupid. We were always supposed to put in service calls to the techs to come and take care of the machines, or we will be brought to HR. 3 months later, last week, 2 guys from Loss Prevention, who will be calling Tweedledum and Tweedledummer, came in to do a regular check-in. Everything was going great, until I needed to change the paper in one of the printers. Tweedledum approached me and basically began raking me over the coals, saying that only technicians can open the machines. Of course, I am dumbfounded because all I'm doing is changing the paper, but I just shrug and say, sorry, won't happen again. Well, the next day, I was brought into a meeting with HR over a video call, basically wagging their finger at me. My boss, D, took the fall for me and said that he was the one to tell me to change the paper, so I got off scot-free, and D only got a slap on the wrist, thankfully so, as this would have been my second write-up in 2 months. The first was a stupid but legitimate mistake on my part. However, as a result of this, the whole facility went into malicious compliance mode after that meeting. Need to change out the paper trays? Service call. Paper jam? Better put in a service call. Need to change the toner? That's a service call. Our output of jobs last week was absolutely in the toilet. Machines were down for nearly 90% of the shifts. The techs were having a field day, however, as they got paid per call they took. While our backlog is through the roof, we were able to make our point eventually. I am not sure exactly what had been happening in the background, but today I received a handwritten apology from Tweedledum and Tweedledummer with a $50 Visa gift card saying that they didn't understand what our job required when they reprimanded me and referred me to HR. We are back at full capacity now and have a huge backlog to catch up on. I'm hoping, in addition to this gift card, I can also get in some approved overtime for some extra spending money on an upcoming trip that I have planned. The company that I work for may be dim at times, but at least they often admit when they make a mistake. Update 1. So I learned a bit more about the situation. The loss prevention people that were involved were the ones directly dealing with the loss of the destroyed printer, and there turned out to be a misunderstanding about everything. My other coworkers in the copy center have gotten into the habit of putting excess paper in the opposite side of the paper tray as storage. Now, the tray can hold up to 12 by 18 paper, so when there's 8.5 by 11 in there, they use the extra space for storage. The techs in D have told them not to do that as they can damage the machine. Whenever I see the excess paper, I take it out. That's what loss protection saw and why they reprimanded me in the first place. They assumed, since I was working with the machines, I was the one who put that extra paper in. I learned this when the company assigned Karen was written up and made it rather vocal today. The problem with working with a good company like this is that it takes way too long to get rid of problem employees. I mean, this is just perfect malicious compliance because they say, oh, there's a problem, and you say, oh no, not exactly the way you're thinking it is. They send in the dummies to come and try to fix it, so you say, oh, okay, you want us to do service calls? We'll literally do service calls on everything to make a freaking point. And that point has been made as the bosses now see, oh, okay, maybe we should take a step back and reevaluate what's going on here. Maybe we're the wrong ones and the employees are right, which is an important distinction to make here. Let me know what you think. Way to go, OP. New neighbors are admittedly very annoying, but one of the HOA board members is asking me to join her in taking pictures of their violations so they can be fined. I'm feeling very conflicted. Posted by DreamBean94. I thought you kind, like-minded folks would be able to help me out with this situation. We live in a townhouse community with HOA. There are about 4 to 5 townhouses per cluster, maybe 10 to 12 clusters, so it's not a huge neighborhood. Very quiet. It's the biggest reason why we moved here. The HOA is okay. I mean, I don't love having an HOA, but ours isn't as bad as some of the horror stories that I've read. They're not too strict and crazy, and we haven't had any huge issues with them. One of the board members lives 2 doors down. She'll call in parking violations and such, so homeowners get reminder letters, which is slightly annoying, but she's not crazy vindictive and doesn't start drama. We had new neighbors move in right next to us a couple weeks ago, and truthfully, they are so annoying. I can't believe that I'm the one saying this. Look, here's what's been going on. They have 2 little dogs who they've been letting run around without a leash in our shared backyard area. We all have back decks and a large lawn that's shared and owned by the HOA. I don't hate dogs, but I also don't like random dogs that I don't know running up to me anywhere, let alone on my deck when I'm just trying to chill. They chain smoke out back to the point where we can't open any of our back windows or doors because the smoke comes right inside. We also can't sit out on our own deck without breathing in their cloud of smoke. This issue is particularly conflicting because it is their deck, but at the same time, now their smoke is coming over to our deck and into our house. I'm trying to figure out a way to mitigate this, but haven't come up with the solution yet. We have a high-capacity HEPA air purifier that will run by the back door, but it's not enough to soak up all the smoke as it wafts in. They've been throwing their cigarette butts out onto the lawn. This drives me the most crazy. It's so gross. Like, why do people do this? They're loud and boisterous at all hours. The homeowner in particular is almost always out back on the phone, yelling loudly at whoever he's talking to. It could be 7 a.m. or 1 a.m. I mean, this doesn't bother me too much during the day, but our bedroom faces the back, and when he's out there being loud at night, it literally sounds like he's inside our bedroom with us. Now, for parking, each unit gets a 1-car garage and 1 outside parking space. There are also clusters of visitor parking around the neighborhood. All spots are labeled with a house number or V for visitor. The new neighbor's guests keep parking in private spots and or in front of the garages, blocking people in. It's not a huge inconvenience if I have to park in a visitor spot, but sometimes there aren't any available and I'll have to park all the way down in this grassy area on the other side of the hood and walk back, which sucks if it's hot as heck out or late at night. Apparently, they also did this to our elderly neighbor, and that bothers me because she really can't be walking a quarter mile and more when it's 95 degrees outside. My fiance and I have been talking about it since they moved in and are trying to figure out how best to approach. This issue is further complicated by the fact that they seem to be very new to the US, so they may have just moved here. I'm guessing that a cultural difference is at play here as well. We wouldn't want to offend them or make them feel unwelcome because of their culture, so we haven't spoken to them yet, and we're just trying to gauge if they're just adjusting or learning the ins and outs of community living in our neighborhood, or if all of this is going to be a long-term issue. So the board member lady approached me yesterday to let me know that she's already fed up with them and has started calling them in for violations. She said that she had already tried talking to them directly, but they were rude to her and dismissed her and haven't stopped with the cigarette butts and parking issues. Which is discouraging because we were starting to lean towards speaking directly with them as well, but now I'm wondering if it's even worth it if they don't give a crap. Board member gave me her number and asked me to start sending over pictures of any violations that I notice with them. I said, okay, sure, and was thinking, I probably won't partake in this kind of stuff. But then, again that day, the new neighbors had guests over who parked my fiancé into the garage. I thought about sending the board member a picture like she asked, but ultimately decided against it this time. So now, I don't know what to do. Do we try talking directly with them first? And if so, what do we even say? We've admittedly never had to have one of these discussions with a neighbor before. Or do I start sending over the pictures? Or would it be best just to stay out of it completely? SOS, I don't want to be a crazy HOA person, but these neighbors are bothering me. Update. So, right after I posted this, the board member rang the doorbell and I went out and talked to her for a bit. She told me that she called the HOA property manager and asked them to address this issue today because she's fed up. Apparently, they've also not been picking up their dog poop on top of everything else. So I mentioned that my fiance and I are thinking about, just casually having a conversation with them about our concerns. But she said not to, that the HOA told her not to talk to them directly, which is a bit odd in my opinion. I'm not sure if they told her like that because they think that she's going to be a bit overboard, or maybe they just want her to leave them alone, or because they're actually concerned for her safety. They said it was a safety thing. Oh, and I also got more deets about the neighbors. They're not actually the homeowners. The homeowners bought the house and immediately rented it out. So They're tenants and the guests are staying here for the entire summer. Update 2. So this happened tonight. They sped around the corner and drove through the lawn to drop some stuff off at their deck. We had 2 kids over at the time, and if they were outside, they very well might have been run over today. OP also says, I was wondering about this homeowner and tenant HOA dynamic. The board member told me that the homeowners can and will be held responsible for their tenants' behavior. And I guess that, if the tenants keep acting up and their homeowner keeps getting fined, eventually the tenants will be kicked out? But I wonder how long it will take for this whole thing to play out. Weeks? Months? Will they leave willingly, or will they need to be evicted? Should be interesting. You know, that's a good idea with a box fan. We have a big box fan that we could put out there, and it would probably help direct the smoke the other way. But then I'd feel a little bad because our elderly neighbor lives on the other side of them. The more I think about the parking thing, the more it starts to bother me. I mean, they must not care and have some sense of entitlement because they're repeatedly parking people in. I mean, hey, OP, the thing about this is, now that we know that they're tenants, that makes it even spicier. You really got to take this and report it to the top, and I would hope this HOA would do what they're supposed to do and not just let it slide. Now, they already said that they're handling it, and they already said that they've got this, don't talk to them, we got it, which means that, okay, something has to be going on. But what? I wonder if the HOA will do anything to these people, because they could take them out of the property, kick them out, do whatever else, leaving that vacant, helping out the other neighbors, or if they'll keep them in there just because they are filling that house as warm bodies, and what will happen next. Way to go, OP. Now this story really drives home the point of how important it is to set the right example for kids and grandkids. You'll see what I mean. Karen and Ken galore in the adventures of shutting down a taco truck, posted by Fear Factory 007. My sister, 14-year-old female, recently just graduated the 8th grade and will be starting life in her dream high school after summer vacation. I am beyond proud of her and was there for every step of stress that she may have, same as my parents. During the final few weeks of school, my sister's teacher and our dad helped set up a full fun beach day in one of the more beautiful beaches in my city that didn't have a whole lot of restaurants, minus Starbucks and vending machines across the ways, so they also arranged for a taco food truck that has been rented for school functions prior. I wasn't able to go since there was no room in the car, as my folks were carpooling as well, and I didn't fully feel like going as it wasn't for me. But this was all fine, as I'm getting ready to hopefully move out into my own place in a year or so. So my folks said this was kind of like a practice round of me living by myself. I've been home alone many times before, but this was a lot more fun than waiting a few hours until someone comes home from work. I did some chores, cooked some lunch, made a grocery list and fed the dogs. Then I did the laundry and the usual adult lifestyle. The only difference of this and when I live alone is the dogs would be out. My family was gone from 9 to 10 a.m. to around 3 to 4 p.m. And when they arrived, my dad helped me go to the store where I bought things for dinner and soda, just because I'm a big soda junkie, and I'm not going to lie about that. Upon arriving back and my sister finishing taking a shower from a full day in the beach, I was told of the events that followed. Scene starts: the beach. As I mentioned, the beach they went to is beautiful, mainly because unlike other beach areas, there wasn't any homeless people living in the area thanks to their safety measures, which is basically those spiky benches and a bridge that you can only drive on. You can't even ride bikes on it. This was also because the place the beach was at is kind of snobbish. My dad said that he's never seen a whiter neighborhood in our state ever, which yeah, is a kind of shock because of where we live, but also because of what happens later. It makes it a whole lot worse. Enter scene: students and taco truck. My sister's entire class was, as any other class today, mixed race from several different generations of families and culture. My sister's school was very open on not making people feel outcast in anything, teaching my sister Hebrew and letting them learn different religions being the few things that they did to make it all inclusive. In today's world, it isn't really, or should be, a shock to see a bunch of kids of different races hanging out together on the beach with their parents. The taco truck arrived and quickly started getting business with the parents and the students and teachers, with amazing meals. I actually had the same truck's food during one school event that I visited. It's bomb. And the things were all peaceful and fun in the sun during the summer, with high school in the future. Interstage left, the cops. Also interstage left, the Karens. Everyone was apparently having a good time when 2 policemen walked over to the area and talked to my sister's teacher and our dad and those of the group who helped set this day up. According to the men in blue, there has been some complaint calls from the locals of a food truck selling food without a permit and loud noises. Now, in my city, you can get a permit for selling food, but if you have a tent or a table or a grill, but if it's a food truck, you don't need it unless you're parked in a park or near an area that's busy, like a hospital or a library. And also, a noise complaint on kids at the beach during a weekend when the beach has other people in it too? When questioning the logic, the cops got snippy to the teacher who was really just trying to find the root of the problem and explain what this is. As my dad said, the cop was straight yelling at the poor man, trying to make a good memory for his students. My mom, however, wasn't going to let this slide with a whimper. Oh no, my mother is a petty queen. Interstage right, my mom. Me and my sisters, we love the dramatic and theatrics that came straight from our mom, who got it from her mom. We love true crime and we love petty things with only a small drabble of tiny guilt-tripping petty. So, enter my mom listening to what's going down and hearing the cops demand they remove this taco truck, or else their beach would be like the other beach that has some homeless people in New York City. No offense to New Yorkers, I hear it's nice. And her response was, looking at the kids, seeing only 5% of the students actually got tacos, turned to the officers and asked, "So, do you want to tell these kids they won't be fed?" The cops stammer and try to say that it's not what he meant until he caved and allowed the kids to eat, but the truck will be locked up as soon as the last kid gets his taco. The line formed, the kids got delicious tacos, and then the truck was packed up and left. The mood was, for obvious reasons, sour after that, and everyone ate and they packed up and just left the beach. Scene end. I'm honestly more so annoyed at the hostility my sister's class got over a beach party. There was no way to know if there were rules, and even if there were, someone would have brought it up and not call the cops, or the cops would politely explain. Not to mention my dad and mom mentioned how they were pretty hostile towards some of the parents, but as soon as the white parents stepped in, their tones were less of, "I will cuff you right now." So the thing that I can take from this story is that you really need to watch and set that example for the kids, right? As an adult, I've been there before in the kids' shoes. I have my own now, and I've realized that they pick up on everything that you do. And just from reading this story, I can tell that this example is going to sit with them for a long time. They're going to think back to this and remember how they were treated and remember what went down with the police and with everything in this situation. They're going to know what happened, and this example is the one that was set for them. It's important as an adult, whether you have kids or no kids, grandkids or not, to set that right example for them. They will pick up on it and they will remember it. Call the HOA because my yard is devaluing your house? All right, I'll have it cleaned by the inspection date. Posted by Jumbo Face. This is a story of my mother's. She has always been incredibly hard-headed, but this sticks out a lot from my teenage years. Once a year, she always had us pull everything out of the garage. There's lots of boxes. My mom has a concerning amount of possessions, so we could go through it and clean and reorganize. This particular year, the couple who owned the house across the street from us, flippers, were in the process of selling their house. Unhappy with my mother's unsightly driveway covered in boxes soiling their good image, they made a call to the HOA. By the time my mother received the letter, the mess had been put away, but they decided to get her on a few other complaints, such as the bikes against the side of the house and the patchy gravel. She had 2 weeks to have everything up to standards. Petty and easily frustrated, my mother knew immediately who called, since the couple had come over and told her flat out, with their renovations, they were selling that house for way more than any other house in this neighborhood, and would appreciate if she respected that by keeping her property on par. For the next 2 weeks, every box from that garage was in our driveway. The couch and the living room TV came next. This was early summer, so it was perfect weather to sit in your yard in your short shorts and sports bra. My mom made sure to wave and smile every time they brought someone over for a showing. The final step came at the end of that 2 weeks, though. After the yard had been cleaned up and cleared by the HOA, my mom went to the local Walmart and bought a for sale sign. She wrote about 1/4 of their ridiculous asking price on it and finished off with a big "sold" written across the front and stuck it out in our yard. No clue what they ended up selling their house for, but it sat empty for a while, so I'd assume it was below offer. This is amazing because you think it's going to go one direction, you have no idea that it's going to go the second. They literally put everything out in the yard when they were showing the house. Like, that's just genius. And on top of that all, Mom has an awesome plan to just devalue the whole thing in general, putting 1/4 of the cost of the house on the side. I didn't even know that was coming. That is icing on top of the icing of the cake. Way to go, OP and Mom. Y'all are awesome. Let me know what you think too. HOA president vandalized my truck and had it towed away to have a junkyard to dismantle it. They were forced to fully repair it, and I sued the HOA president. Posted by Knock on Wood HOA. This incident happened in January of this year. Last year, I moved into a neighborhood with an optional HOA. At the time, I'd come into enough money to buy a house outright. The only reason I moved here is because the HOA was optional and it's a nice, safe neighborhood. It's a slice of heaven compared to where I used to live. I own 2 vehicles, a 2004 Toyota Camry and a 1999 Ford F-150. The Camry is my daily driver, while the F-150 is my hauler for when I need it. I bought the truck around the same time that I bought the house to help me out with the move, and I used it to pull a rented trailer when I was moving my stuff in. The F-150 is old, but it's in good mechanical order, and I try to keep both of my vehicles clean with monthly trips through a car wash. The local HOA did not like me from the start due to my refusal to join. The HOA president was a retired old man who seemed like he had nothing better to do, so he tried multiple times to sell me on joining and sent me several applications in the mail, but I always declined. Politely at first. But when the president got more aggressive, I told him to shove it where the sun doesn't shine. That's when the HOA decided that I was a member anyway, and then they started sending me fines in the mail with that claim. I knew they were bogus, so I went to the next HOA meeting to dispute the fines. They tried to tell me that by living here, I'm in the HOA whether I liked it or not. This was an obvious power move and something that I was ready for. I could only laugh in amazement of their stupidity, and I said as much to them. Then I told the board that not only was I not a member, but I'd gotten a lawyer to write up a C&D for them. I handed the envelope over. The board skimmed it and then furiously told me to get out. The fine stopped for a few months and then started right back up again at random. So I popped into another HOA meeting and I told them that this was not legal. I'm not in their HOA and I'd take them to court if they didn't stop. Once again, I was furiously told to get out. The fines stopped for good, but the HOA president decided that I needed to be made an example of. It happened only a few days later. I came home to find my F-150 gone from my driveway. I checked the cameras and saw the HOA president himself walk onto my property. He took out a pocket knife and stabbed each of my truck's tires in the sidewalls, then unscrewed the license plates off, put them in a bag, and just casually walked away with them. Then, a little while later, a tow truck came and hauled my truck away. I called the police, and together we went to see the HOA president. But he wasn't home. With my situation explained, this was not considered a civil matter, but grand theft auto. The police traced the tow truck as being from a local junkyard and not from an impound lot. I accompanied the police there, and not only was the HOA president present at the junkyard, but my F-150 was there being taken apart by about 4 men. They'd already removed the headlights, the hood, the bumper, and the radiator, and all of the panels off of the front of the truck by the time we got in there. There was stuff disconnected all over the engine bay, and the catalytic converters had already been cut out. The HOA president looked like a deer in headlights when he saw me there with police. I was nearly angry beyond words when I saw my truck in that condition. Nearly, I say, because I went off like a foul-mouthed country sailor on the people who'd ripped my truck apart. The HOA president was caught red-handed, but he insisted that he'd only towed my truck because it was in a sorry state and looked abandoned. I said he illegally took it off of my private property since the HOA had no right to tow it off of my land, and he clearly had not been aware of my cameras as they'd seen everything that he did. He went pale at first and then furiously tried to stomp towards me looking like he was ready for a fight while yelling that my truck had been an eyesore, so he got rid of it. This action earned him some new bracelets and a free ride to the station. The police were somewhat merciful to the junkyard staff who claimed to have only been doing their jobs. The owner of the junkyard is a cousin to the HOA president, so he was contracted to do any towing for the HOA since he was also owned a local impound. He had no idea I wasn't a member of the HOA and also was not aware that his cousin had ordered his employees to tear my truck apart for parts as an abandoned vehicle. The police cited all sorts of broken laws to the employees and the owner, and then they agreed to put my truck back together. But I said that it had better be at least as good as it was, if not better, or I'd be going to my lawyer. The owner told his employees to do whatever it takes, or he'd separate them from their jobs. Then he told me he'd bill the HOA president for everything later. Then the police and I got to watch as all of those employees had to painstakingly put my truck back together, piece by piece. And they repeatedly muttered things about me to each other and flashed me the stink eye from time to time. Yeah, I'm guessing the HOA president offered to bribe them all to take my truck apart as quickly as possible. But now they had to fix it for free. And they were at it for hours. They had to weld the catalytic converters back in and even had to replace some parts entirely due to damage caused during hasty disassembly. When they first fired up the engine, it had an obvious misfire. Yeah, they denied it, but police sided with me that they could tell that it had a misfire too. Turns out they had ruined one of the coil packs taking the truck apart, and they had to order new parts from a nearby auto parts store to fix it. One of the headlights also stopped working. Again, something that they had to fix because I stated that I could prove with my home cameras that they were both working when I last drove it. And the bulbs were nearly brand new LEDs, so they had to have broken something. The coolant lines had also been just cut instead of simply disconnected, probably because they were trying to take the truck apart in a hurry. So those were more parts that had to be ordered from the nearby store as well. I can only imagine the total cost that was billed to the HOA president for this. All 4 of the tires had to be replaced because they were not repairable. So they had to leave the truck on a lift and take all 4 wheels off. There were other problems too, and all of these junkyard mechanics had to work overtime to put the truck back together on the hopes that I wouldn't sue or press charges. I wasn't even able to take the truck home till the next day evening because the police had to get my plates back and the junkyard staff had to take the wheels in for new tires. By the time I got the truck back, the 2 junkyard employees I saw there gave me looks that just said not to come back. And the truck actually runs better than before. So essentially, I got a free sort of overhaul for my trouble. As for the HOA president, well, I did sue him for trespassing, for theft, destruction of property, and the illegal tow. He ended up paying his cousin for all of my truck repairs, lost his position in the HOA, and moved out of the neighborhood shortly after losing the lawsuit because he had no leg to stand on in court since everything was caught on CCTV. He pretty much surrendered to the asked-for settlement, which is why it didn't get drawn out. The HOA has not bothered me at all since that truck incident. And my neighbors loved me for getting rid of the old HOA president, as he was a power-tripping narcissist to them all and kept issuing pointless fines that had to be regularly disputed. Also, I've been back to that junkyard for parts, but for my Camry instead, as I went to pull a replacement grill for it and found one in excellent shape there. They did recognize me, and they gave me some dirty looks, but otherwise, they didn't bother me. Updates and more info from OP. One commenter says, if it was optional, was it a neighborhood association? Most HOA are mandatory as they run with the land, unless they were trying to annex you. Either way, kudos on blowing their HOA. And OP replies, from what I know, the HOA was originally set up as a volunteer association, probably to make it look more appealing. So that system remained for whatever reason, but they slowly got almost everyone else in the neighborhood to join. I'm told the HOA was actually pretty good until the current board took over. However, them booting out the president that I sued effectively neutered them. And I'm betting the board will all get replaced since the current president that was elected after the last one was kicked out is way nicer. The rest of the board are old fat cats, and several of my neighbors have told me that they want to replace them in the next board election, which is happening soon. Commenter replies, why replace when you can dissolve the HOA? Just do it. Plant the idea. OP responds, believe me, I've heard that idea may be floating around, but since I'm not in the HOA, I'm not kept in the know about most details. But whatever happens, I'll try to update about it as the board elections are only weeks away. Next commenter says, the fact that the junkyard owner made the HOA pay for all the repairs is probably the only reason those employees still have jobs. If they ever give you a hard time, maybe bring that up. And OP replies, yeah, but I'm betting that junkyard owner isn't really a very good person. Someone told me they heard he used to run a chop shop in the 90s and may still be doing that. I can't confirm or deny that though, which is why I didn't bother to include it. But yeah, it was just grand that the HOA president had to foot the bill to basically rebuild half of my truck. See, this is a beautiful story here, full of malicious compliance and pro-revenge to the HOA pres, because he thought that he would do this method here to get rid of OP and just completely illegally destroy his truck and literally have it taken apart. But when OP came through, not even part of the HOA, he says, no, I'm going to bust you, you president. This is all going to fall back on you. Everybody hates you now. You're now off the board. You leave the whole entire neighborhood. You're sued. It's literally insane, the fallout of this nuclear level revenge of what OP was able to do to this HOA president and still get a better version of his truck back in the end. Way to go, OP. What would have you done? Old boss steals owed money through mandatory retirement payments and tells me if I don't like it to take it up with the authorities. So I did. Posted by My Nuts Are Musical. Here we go. A few years back now, I worked for a smallish locally owned company owned by two friends. The company was going strong when I started, but after 10 years there, the place was going downhill fast. One day, we discovered the bosses had not been making superannuation payments to us, which my country's required retirement fund that employees and employers are required to pay into, for over 2 years, owing tens of thousands over all the employees. This was the final straw for me, and I gave them 2 weeks' notice. As I was basically the last manager there, most of the employees also quit with me, and this really ticked off the owners who thought that I was somehow overreacting. I made them ensure that they would pay me what I was owed, or I would get the tax agency involved. A few weeks later, I get an email detailing repayments significantly less than what was owed. When I emailed back, they told me that they had taken hours I owed in time in lieu out of what was owed in superannuation, and if I had a problem with that, they would have no issue speaking with the authorities about the hours that I stole from them. This is, of course, highly illegal. For one, we had no contract laying out that I would have to repay owed hours. Secondly, they most definitely cannot take that money from my superannuation repayments. I decided not to reply, save the email, and move straight onto the tax agency, which they look after superannuation affairs. This took a very long time, as the process is very slow, but after about a year and several different tax representatives, I one day got a call out of the blue from one of the owners. This was a very angry, threatening call asking why I had reported them to the tax agency and why I was determined to ruin their lives. I told him exactly why I did it and that he reaped what he sowed. A few days later, I get an email from the tax agency telling me that they will be repaying all that was owed, plus interest accrued over the now 3+ years that they didn't pay. They would have also been put on a blacklist of employers had they not sold the business a few months after we left. For more background, after I quit, I took 2 weeks off to be alone with my thoughts and relax for a bit before accepting one of the many job offers that I received once my departure had been made public in our industry. I walked away with a higher pay, more secure job, and the position every company in the industry was fighting for at the time, as the company I chose won the contract and they gave the position to me. This is beautiful because the company thinks that they can get over screwing over people for their retirement, which is very important, mind you, and something that should be taken very seriously. This is literal theft of their money, and they think that they can just say, oh, go ahead, talk to the authorities about it. We'll defend ourselves. We don't care. Yeah, what they're doing is illegal. That's so stupid to say that you don't care to talk to the authorities when you're literally committing felony level fraud. Come on, man. Like, what are you going to do when they come to you and they say, oh, you were guilty of this? Yeah, exactly. There's nothing you can do. You're just way out of your mind, employer. Way out of your mind. Way to go, OP, for standing your ground and doing what's right. What do you think? Click my next crazy HOA Karen compilation on your screen to continue your listening session. Thanks for checking this one out, and see you in the next one.